thank you so much for being here and welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
As you know, this is a record fourth time back to the podcast. No one else has ever achieved this feat. I feel like you're basically my co-host now.
I love it. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm very proud record holder in this regard.
What I love about you coming back each time is it feels like every time you come back, you're just doing something even more epic and exciting. And so these days, as we'll hear in the intro, you're head of growth at Lovable, which no big deal, on track to be the fastest or one of the fastest growing companies in history, depending on the metric that you track. Let's talk about just the scale and growth of Lovable to give people a sense of just how incredible this is. I'll share a bit of this in the intro, but just like, what are some stats you can share about just how things are going at Lovable?
So we are just a little bit over 1 year old since we launched. The company actually did exist as a GPT engineer before, but it officially launched in the third week of November last year in 2024. So for us, we've hit over $200 million in annual recurring revenue before we even hit our 1 year milestone since being launched, which is pretty incredible. You, Lenny, actually have a really great blog post on how quickly it takes for companies usually to get to their first million ARR, and it's usually multiple years. So this is definitely a unicorn. I don't think this is a standard. There's a couple of things that account for it, and we can talk about it. And the growth is only accelerating, so it's compounding, which is great because we had our 100 million in end of July, and just 4 months later, we were at 200 million. So 7 months to, well, maybe 8 months to 100 million, another 4 months to get to 200 million. And from users too, we already have over 8 million users that have tried Lovable. We have, as you can imagine, to feed that 200 million, hundreds of thousands of paid subscribers as well that are paying for us. So things are going great, and we'll talk about why.
Okay, absurd. I think people are getting used to these insane numbers. And not long ago, it was like, okay, if you hit 1 million ARR in a year, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
it's still you're doing pretty well if you have 1 million ARR in 1 year. This is one of the once in a lifetime type of companies, and the category, the way that it's evolving. So I want to make sure that people don't all of a sudden set this as a benchmark for success, because it should never be. In some categories, it might be even faster as we continue evolving technology, but I don't think that it's realistic to expect it out of your business that you're starting right now.
That is such an important point you're making there. It's so discouraging to founders to hear these stories of, okay, 200 million nut. And again, this is ARR. There's a lot of companies, especially in the data labeling space. I've had them all on the podcast that are very fast growing, but they're not recurring revenue. There's also, they pay out their people to do this data labeling. So the revenue numbers there don't really equate. Like recurring $200 million a year is absurd.
Yeah, it is absurd. I really want to make sure that people understand as we go through this episode as to why it's happening, because part of it is unlovable, part of it is just in the market and how it's moving. So when you're setting yourself as a benchmark, so you know which benchmarks you actually to use and whether Lovable is the benchmark that you should be using.
Cool. I'm going to get into that next. Last question, just I want to see what you can share here. A lot of people look at these numbers. A lot of people are very skeptical. These are lasting, durable numbers. Like, who are these people? How is there $200 million being spent on Lovable? Anything you can have about just like give people confidence this is real, this is going to last, this is a really durable business.
Well, I saw Stripe receipts, so it is real as far as I'm concerned, unless Stripe dashboard is lying to us, but it is money getting deposited in our bank account. But let's talk about who's actually contributing to that number. We do have a really large use case of people starting their own companies on Lovable. So we call it a founder use case, where somebody that is non-technical, that has never been able to code or create a piece of software, is now able to come in and actually build an app completely from scratch. And some of them are already monetizing it, some of it just using it for lead gen for other services, or some physical goods, for example, that they're selling. Some of them are just still building, and we monetize on the act of building. So that progression of like building up to your product market fit takes quite a bit of time. And even with Lovable, we're so much more efficient and effective compared to hiring an engineer in terms of the price, but it still takes time. So we have a lot of founders, whether it's B2C, whether there's B2B, so consumer products, business products, e-commerce, whatever it is. But on the other side, we have a lot of employees within companies using Lovable as well, where they're building internal tools or they're building prototypes, they're building landing pages. So that is another use case that is very relevant and quite efficient for us. But then there is a hype and discovery that is happening as well. Because when I think about software, I think about it. I talked to John Cutler actually, and he gave me this framework that is like completely stuck in my mind of software always goes through capabilities stage first, like what is possible to actually create with this. Then it needs to transition into value of how is it that am I going to get value out of this? And then you can start thinking about scaling it. Of which aspects of my life and my work that can this actually go in. And we're right now very much in the capability stage with vibe coding because everybody's just exploring what can I do? And the beautiful thing here is that what you can do changes every month to 3 months. So you constantly need to come back and you need to see what has changed. So a lot of people use it for personal reasons. I build myself apps, tutoring apps for my kid. So he has to answer questions in order to get some screen time accumulated for him. I build my own portfolio. I see people doing wonderful things. My favorite story that I always say, there's this man that created a proposal on Lovable. So his fiance had to answer questions and like she had to complete this game. And then at the end, there was like this big reveal and he proposed to her. But people just unlock the most creative things that they build on Lovable. And that's where the revenue is coming from. The one piece that is working very well for us in terms of how our monetization model is set up and how it interjects with your activation moment, which we can also cover, but that is what's driving both conversion and retention rates.
Let me ask you one question that's on people's minds, I imagine, as you talk about this. Just what does retention look like?
Yeah, so retention, really, I look at it in two ways. Retention, that it comes as a subscriber retention. So how many paid subscribers do we get and how many of them are we capable of renewing? There's also a very important aspect of it is how many of them can we expand? Because if you can get positive or above 100% net dollar retention, which is super important metric for investors. If you don't know about net dollar retention, please read it up. That's like a superpower to get bigger multiple if you can show NDR that is over 100. And then there's actual engagement retention as well, because that is the leading indicator for how your paid retention is going to look like. For paid retention, I know there is so much on the market of, oh, this is a high product and it's a leaky bucket and it has really high churn rates. Although I shouldn't share, it's not public numbers for us to share actual retention. However, what I can say is on par with benchmarks of other B2B SaaS products that I've ever worked at. And I worked with Miro, Dropbox, SurveyMonkey, Netlify, Amplitude, and others. So are we absolutely crushing with paid retention? No. Are we where most of the other companies are? Yes. Our NDR is quite good because when people build, they want to buy more credits to build. So we're seeing really good revenue retention. But we're honestly more focused right now on engagement retention than even paid retention because our North Star is just to get as much usage as possible. And we will fix and tune our monetization model afterwards. So engagement retention, I would say, is a by far bigger priority focus for us at the moment.
That is incredibly interesting and optimistic to hear because of the growth rate. Rarely is growth rate this high and retention is on par with great companies.
Yeah, and I'll just say too, which is a little bit maybe counterintuitive would be to a lot of companies, we don't optimize for revenue at all. In fact, internally, we have a lot of discussions about how can we give more products away? How can we reduce our revenue growth rate by just getting more paid subscribers, more users using Lovable to just get bigger share of the market. So our revenue is an outcome of us just trying to get more people through the door, not us trying to optimize for revenue per user or to get them to monetize at the higher rate. So there's like a very interesting path here where by actually focusing on the inputs, like you should, it translates to a good output, but we don't look at that output as something that we're trying to grow.
Let's talk about growth. Let's talk about what you've learned about growth in this space. You had this post online where you said that you've had to throw out most of your growth playbook. This is a huge deal. You've led growth a lot of really successful companies. Yeah. Lovable is growing incredibly well. This tells me there's a lot we can learn from what you've seen. So tell us what you're seeing, what's still working, what's not working, what you've learned about what it takes to drive growth at a company like Lovable.
Yeah, I would say that in any other role that I've come into before, I felt confident in about 80% of the patterns that I can bring to that role, meaning that I can identify inputs, understand which framework kind of applies. I know a bunch of examples that fit in within that framework, so we just need to localize a solution and push. And it was quite productive in terms of getting a company those additional acquisition, conversion, engagement, monetization rates. So I felt very repetitive in a way after some time because I feel like I'm just coming in and copy pasting. And although every single company loves to say that they have unique problems, at the end of the day, all of the problems were very similar. And I felt like I was like doing the same job over and over again. When I started at Lovable, the one thing to me that was very clear is that this company was growing like crazy before I joined. So I want to make sure that there's not that much value on what I have even added today because this company is on a tear. And yes, we're rounding the edges and removing barriers for growth. So we're not standing in our own way, but there's something more magical happening here that is not a pattern that I've ever seen before. It's not a framework that I can even conceptualize in my head. And plus, it's a new category that I've never seen or I've never been in a company that is in a new emerging category that hits fast-moving water so quickly. And that's the difference because when you're usually trying to create a new category, it takes years. I know it's every marketer's dream to create a new category, but it takes decades often to really get that much hype and adoption around it. Versus with vibe coding, this has seemed to have happened really quickly. It's like it's hit the nerve with the market. So yes, we're at the right place, we're at the right time, but we're also in really fast-moving waters. And the demand that is coming to us, like we need to capture it mostly. We don't need to generate a lot of it yet. But at the same time, it comes with a really big downfalls of we're not in control of a lot of our growth. I mean, let's be honest about it. There's so much incredible word of mouth that is happening, and we're trying to grow that, but to enable as much of that as possible. But the company is moving. We're just like hanging on to it as fast as possible and making sure that we're like not going to hit a wall, so to speak, in front of us, and that the wheels are greased and that all of the pieces are in place. It's like your race car framework that you have as well. We're really just putting a lot of oil into it and figuring out what is our engine actually going to be that is going to take us forward. But when I'm thinking about the patterns here and what I have to unlearn, I feel like only 30 to 40% of what I've learned in the last 15 to 20 years of being in growth transfers here. And some of it is very straightforward. Okay, this is how you're going to do paid marketing. This is how you're going to do some of the habitual retention. Here's the free to paid, maybe monetization frameworks that still stand. But the rest of it, honestly, just say it doesn't feel like it even matters anymore. Because we just need to invest in such bigger bets and innovate and create new growth loops here, as opposed to trying to optimize it to the moon and beyond, which would I usually be focused on in a scaled business like this.
Let's follow those threads. So what is it that no longer is worth it in this bucket of just like, let's not spend any time on this thing? And then what do you find is actually moving the needle?
Not worth it. In growth, most of the people spend most of the time optimizing existing user journeys. So you already have maybe some of your growth loops that you understand that you try to optimize, or you just know, hey, there's big drop-offs from acquisition to activation. Let me go figure out I can tweak the dials to get it done. Here, what I find is that optimizations are just not worth our time. So a lot of the times my growth team actually ends up working on new features or just standing up new growth loops one after another. And yes, there's of course the saying of like more growth loops does not mean more growth. But at the same time, the market is moving so quickly, you need to stand up a bunch of initiatives to capture it because it's perishable. Or we also have so much competition. We're not alone here. So we can't ignore that there's everybody and their mother is starting a vibe coding business nowadays, and we need to figure out how to be ahead of them. And to be ahead of them is not optimization of the problem, it's reinvention of the solution. So I just feel like I usually spend maybe 5%, maybe 10% if I'm lucky, innovating on growth in my roles, in my previous roles. Right now, I'm spending 95% innovating on growth and only 5% on optimization. And most of my frameworks are on optimization because it's really hard to come up with frameworks for innovation because by default, by definition, they're innovative.
What I'm hearing here is new features, launching new features, new
Yes.
products is one of the bigger growth levers versus like you have a bunch of cool stuff, make it easier to use, increase activation, reduce friction, things like that.
Yeah, and for example, we on growth team launched integration with Shopify to enable e-commerce use case. Because we're like, hey, there's already people trying to come in and do it. Shopify was open for integration with us. Let's go lean into it so people can vibe code their storefronts. That came out of growth. That usually would never come out of growth. Like, why would growth team ever invest into a core product integration? Or we enabled voice mode for people so they can actually chat with Lovable using their voice as opposed to only having type. And that's also, it's a feature, it's a core product feature, but we're like, hey, it's going to help people to converse with Lovable more. It's going to increase the engagement. One area that we've spent very little time in is activation, because usually I spend majority of my time in activation because there's so many awareness things that need to happen and so many things that we need to smooth out experience for the users in order for them to get through that setup moment, to aha moment, to that habit loop. And here you're just interacting with agent. So we, at the beginning, were like, the agent team that we have here is working a lot on it. Like, why would we go in there and do anything? It's like our core team is responsible for activation. Now we're starting to move into doing agent work ourselves. So all of a sudden, growth team is not just doing product surfaces. Now we're doing agentic workflows and codifying agent instructions in order for customers to activate better. So the work fundamentally, I feel like, has gotten deeper into product and deeper into actual core product functionality, as opposed to just being a smoothing surface on the outer layers.
Okay, that is also a very big deal. Every growth person that's ever been on this podcast, including you, always talks about the power of activation, just how much opportunity there is to get people to this aha moment, realize how the value of this product, that increases retention, increases everything. And what you're saying here is you barely spend any time on activation because in a company like Lovable, there's a prompt, you give it what you want, it generates a thing. And that's basically all it is. And so the impact is to make that agent better at that thing versus micro-optimize every step.
And our agent team spends night and day thinking about it. So I've never been at the company where core team thinks so much about activation, thinks so much about that first generation, thinks so much about reaching aha moment. So it's more weaved into DNA of the overall company, which takes the pressure off of me to only have to focus on it. Because otherwise, yeah, I would be in that experience all the time. But I feel a lot more at ease because everybody's thinking about it and everybody's working on making agents better. And agent, the beauty of it is it doesn't matter if it's actually first generation or if it's your nth generation. It just needs to be a better generation. Agent needs to understand your intent better and think and reason behind it. So it improves the entire life cycle immediately, as opposed to having to only work on that first experience per se.
And what you're not saying is don't care about that experience. It's the team building that is already obsessed with making that activation experience better and better.
And I love that because that's the core product functionality at this point. And before, people would spend more time building deeper features or deeper use cases or trying to improve some platform functionality. And now the core team, they're obsessed about that first experience because that is core product.
Another lever that I've noticed, especially with Lovable, and I'm seeing it more and more in social media, is just founders telling you what's going on. I think this connects really deeply with the new features. Launching new features, say Anton, is just like, hey, check out this cool new thing, check out our growth numbers. Is that a big growth lever too?
Yeah, so one of our biggest strategy is building in public. And it's coupled with employee socials, founder-led socials for sure. This is difficult for larger companies, but when you're smaller and you still have a little bit more narrative control with everybody on your team, plus you have so much more trust within your organization of where people are going to say the right things because they understand what actually has happened. That ability to just really quickly deliver the message to the market becomes really important. Now, we still do big launches. So we still have everything tiered into tier 3, 2, 1. Like tier 1s are going to happen as like big moments that we're going to really rally as a company behind. And it's going to be something that is meant to step function change our product market fit. And we're going to do a bunch of activities behind it. But at the same time, what's really important to us is to maintain noise in the market. And that noise in the market happens by us shipping every day, every other day, multiple times per day, and just talking about it constantly. Interestingly enough, it actually works as a fantastic resurrection strategy because people are like, oh, there's more things here. Like, I need to go check it out. It also works as great re-engagement strategy. So instead of sending newsletters to say, like, here's the market trends or here's the user stories, like people are like literally logging into their social to see like, okay, what has Lovable shipped now? It's like, what is the change? So it's interesting to them to see, because from the time that they voice their opinion on what needs to happen to actual delivery is so short, so they feel heard. And they are heard because that's how we prioritize all of the things that we're shipping. But it's interesting because I've never been in a company that tries to maintain so much just shipping velocity to maintain a certain amount of noise that it feels like the product is alive. It's changing every single week. And then there's like these big amplifications, turbo boosts, so to speak, in the race car model that then go out and they fundamentally create a step function change in that product market fit as a whole. And that is a retention strategy I can get behind any day and all day. I only hope that we can maintain it as we continue scaling.
Sounds stressful. This reminds me, I had Gaurav. He's the CEO of Mirage. It used to be called Captions, which is a really successful AI video company startup. And they have a policy of you ship a marketable feature every week.
Mhm.
That's how their company operates. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's just ship things you can talk about.
Velocity of shipping is our number one core value in development team. So we do anything and everything to just keep it going up, and into the right. And by the way, this also means that everybody has a little bit of marketer within them. This is we have very lean product organization. We actually lean on our engineers to do a lot of product work. We call them product engineers. And they have to go and they have to announce the thing that they've shipped. It doesn't just funnel through marketing. So there's a lot of autonomy, a lot of agency that needs to happen with this type of velocity, because marketing team, otherwise you have to have like enormous marketing team to staff that. So it has to come with some roles and responsibilities redefinition on the team as well.
Let's talk about marketing. That's something else you've written about, is just marketing is changing in a big way, their role in growth. How does marketing play a role in all of this?
On one side, marketing channels are changing. On the other side, marketing's involvement into everything that product does is changing. And then number 3, I think even marketing organizations in terms of where they hire the most are changing as a result as well. So I'll talk about second one first, just because we just talked about shipping. And that is, you still have your product marketers, you still have your channel managers, but they focus more on the big things and the narratives. Although it's difficult because the narrative even changes all the time as these functionalities come through. Usually you can come up with the positioning and the messaging and you can have it for years and create all of the campaigns around it. Now you have it for 3 months and then the product changes. So like the cycles here are really short, and for smaller changes, because cycles are so short, they spend so much time actually focusing on it, as they should, that some of these smaller changes just cannot be supported by marketing. You have to delegate it to your product and engineering team to do their own marketing, because otherwise, again, you're gonna have to have enormous marketing team in order to support it all. But at the same time, channels in which marketing right now works, I think, are changing quite a bit. And not enough people, I feel like, are freaking out and talking about it, as opposed to like moving just in the same direction over and over again. And the changes that I'm seeing is that it has been very clear to me that when you're talking about organic strategy, if you marketing organic strategy, if you asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said that's SEO. It's search engine optimization. Go on Google. That's your organic marketing strategy. If you ask me what's the organic marketing strategy right now, to me, it's all about social, which is what is my CEO posting? What is my team posting? What is my LinkedIn? What is my creator economy doing? Influencer marketing. And across all of the social platforms. That is my organic, which is, that one's kind of paid, to be fair. But when I think about organic, there is still a lot of that word of mouth. What are my users posting on social? What are they talking about it? What are they sharing? Which is like a mind shift, because I've been always, especially in B2B, so focused on search. And now I feel like it's been completely pushed even further into consumerization territory. And it has become all about social, no matter how B2B you are, because that's where eyeballs are at.
That is fascinating. And so when you talk about socials, what are you finding is most helpful? Is it Twitter/X? Is it LinkedIn? Is it YouTube, TikTok, Instagram?
For founder socials, our employee socials, X and LinkedIn are fantastic sources, especially for B2B, because that's where all of the B2B people are at. But you cannot just have ChatGPT write your copy and post it. You need to show personality. Like, there needs to be humanity that it goes through it. And it's not natural for everybody, and it feels very awkward sometimes to start. But it's important to people to see who's building the company, because there's so much competition now on functionality, so they can rally behind a team. So they want to have a team that they want to win. And for that, you need to be vulnerable. You need to be authentic, obviously, but you just need to be yourself. So like that corporate scrubbing has to completely fall off, which is obviously going to pull in as the company scales, but at least at the beginning, that is a your chance to stand out. And then your customers posting about you. So that word of mouth of really creating a product that creates something for customers that is worth talking about. It gives them stories that they want to share, that feels empowering to them to tell to others, like they're unlocking a secret, like they feel proud of what they have created. Which what we focus a lot on Lovable on, to have that feeling of, oh my gosh, I have superpowers now, and I can't wait to tell others. I cannot wait to show others what is happening. So on both of those sides, to me, that is very much organic. If you're in a consumer, then Instagram, TikTok are very much a go as well.
So here it's the CEO clearly is an important variable in this. Them, in this case, Anton just tweeting, here's what's going on Lovable, here's how fast it's growing, here's something we've learned. We had the CEO of Gamma on recently, Grant, and he's exactly the same thing, just sharing a bunch of lessons, journey building in public, a big part of the growth lever. And your point here is, okay, so it's the CEO, but then it's also how do you get your customers to share things on socials? And then there's a paid influencer sort of component.
Yes, the customer is a difficult one. That's a word of mouth loop that you need to stand up. The only way to create a word of mouth loop is just to blow their socks off when they actually experience your product. We have a really almost unfair advantage because our product is called Lovable. So by default, we're trying to create an absolute lovable experiences. Like that is a mentality internally. If it's not lovable, we're not going to ship it. So, and the best way to fix a bug at Lovable is to say this is not lovable. Like when everybody's just like jumps on it to fix it right there and then. Sprints, no sprints, it doesn't matter. It's getting fixed right now. So from that perspective, we kind of have that culture already embedded as part of our brand and as part of our name, which helps us a lot. But that's the point, is that you feel that brand through every interaction. I talk to my designer all the time. How can we add more love marks into the product? How can we prioritize more unique interactions, the little elements that make up that feeling of this product is speaking to me? It's like it feels something like that is unique. It has personality behind it. So we put all of the brand work actually into our product. When you think about Lovable, people think about a brand, but we don't have a brand marketing team yet. So it's all just through product interactions and some of those building in public moments of the people behind those product interactions. That is our strategy. And then there's influencer marketing. Interestingly enough, influencer marketing is 10 times bigger for us than paid social. So yeah, we do some paid social as well. And it's working decently. It's quite expensive from payback period. We're still optimizing it. As I said, we're pretty early on in all of these channels, but influencer marketing is something that has worked from the beginning at Lovable. And reason behind it is that influencer marketing, especially on the socials, it gives you an opportunity to have a little video and interaction. And Lovable is all about seeing like, oh my gosh, this is what I can do. And this is possible. So that drives people to go and try it themselves. So that's why social works very well for us, because it's not really a written value proposition. Like nobody knows what vibe coding is, but you watch 10 seconds of it and you go, ooh, that's new. Let me go give it a try.
Who would have thought that a head of growth, who is traditionally seen as like data, metrics, spreadsheets, drive KPIs, is like, okay, how do we make this more lovable? How do we add more moments of delight?
I know my joke is like at the end of my Lovable journey, whenever hopefully never comes to an end, but at the end I'll be like a growth brand person. Here, hi, my name is Elena. I do brand now, but I actually see it as part of growth strategy to make sure that that brand shines through every single interaction. And I always talk to my team about it because that is one big lever in our growth story.
Yeah, so I think that's a really important point to highlight. The reason Lovable is growing so fast is it is a product people love. You've made something people want. And the word of mouth spreads because it's something that blows people's socks off, as you said. So it feels like that's the first thing you got to get right.
Yes. Well, the first thing you have to get right is you have to be at the right place at the right time, and you have to be in fast-moving waters. Like, let's not discount how fast this category is exploding on its own. So this cannot happen in every single category that you're starting to build the products. But the way to stand out in the super crowded category is to create experiences that speak to people. That, I think, is something that a lot of people deprioritize because they still prioritize functionality over humanity within software. And I think that we're actually moving to the new era of software that needs to feel human, that people want to interact with, not just utility of it. Because cost of software is coming down so much to develop that we now can actually invest into emotional feel of that software as opposed to only just focus on creating the utility out of it. So to me, I love this move because I hate nothing more than going to software that is just like so painful to use that I lose some brain cells as I'm interacting with it versus software that I feel I get energy out of. And for Lovable, for me, like I cannot wait on some of the projects that I have to go and vibe code myself. Like that's the highlight of my day. And I just like, I bring in my daughter and I'm like, let's go do this. Like, what do you think that needs to be done? Because I just get so much energy out of doing it. And that is the feeling you cannot create by looking at it as a utility problem.
The way I think about it, the way what you're describing is it's almost table stakes have increased, and now it's so easy to build. Now the big differentiator is experience, design, delight.
Exactly. And it has to translate through every single interaction. So your designer has to be one of your first hires now in startups. It's not just about the engineering, so to speak, utility. And you have to think through every single interaction of, does this communicate our brand or not?
So along those lines, I want to come back to something you talked about, which is launching new features is a huge growth lever. Kind of the big question there is just how do you maintain quality and cohesiveness as all these people are empowered to ship stuff? Is there anything there you've seen that works well to help avoid just the Frankenstein product, just endless features that you want to tweet about?
Yeah. One part of it is not something that you can codify, but it's the type of people that you hire that are going to go and ship these things. We at Lovable try to hire the absolute best talent available out there that we can bring in and that we can source and that we can attract to grow with. And what do I mean by that best talent? It's not that somebody who has been at really large companies or somebody that has really done a lot of logos or has big success stories behind them. It's somebody who is extremely passionate about their job. It's their hobby. They love to work. They have fire in their belly. This is not a paycheck for them. They want to do this for some ulterior reason. This is the biggest opportunity of their life. So this is global maximum against any other opportunities that are in front of them at the moment. So that's very important for us. We want people to come and do their absolute best work at Lovable. It's very important. And you can feel it in this office. People are wired up. They are so high on how can we make this better? How can we deliver more to our customers? And that's very different compared to usually how companies grow. We're like, okay, yeah, the check, they fit the skill set, let's bring them in. But is that passion, is that fire behind it? And then the second piece is that we work really hard on just addressing what's the success here looks like. What is it that we're building? What use cases are we building for? And then because we hire these people that are so passionate about it, the other two skills, by the way, that are super important is high agency and high autonomy. I can figure out things that are tangential to me, that I don't need other specialties, so to speak. Like I don't need a marketer to go launch something. I can go figure it out. And I have high agency. I can go do it myself. I'm going to own it from all the way from start to finish. Those are very important, something that we screen for and something that we look for in our culture. And then you just see what you want to do is up to you. So there's very little supervision that happens on the ground. Now, we all have goals and like some of the big launches that we're all marching towards, but some of the work that is completely up to developers, up to marketers or whatever, what is it that they want to do? So there has to be that enablement of go try things. And because of our velocity, if you fail, it's not a big deal. We'll just pivot. We'll get through it. We are not here to just win all the time.
On the hiring of these incredible people, as we all know, it's very hard to hire people these days, especially the best. What have you seen Lovable does differently or does well that helps them recruit the best?
Yes, especially recruit in Stockholm. I mean, the main office here is in Stockholm. We're asking a lot of people to relocate, which is a no small feat. Now, some of it is makes it easy because of how much hype we created around our product. People want to come work for us. They're reaching out to us. They're saying, I love what you're doing. I want to join it. So that we have a cheat code to it because like we have most of the time when we reach out to somebody, they say, yeah, I would love to explore. So building that product that is highly lovable also creates a really great recruiting brand for you as well. So make sure that there are like multiple benefits to that. But second of all, we do a lot of trials for people. So trial work to see them in action. A work trial to see them in action for a couple of days. We pay them as part of the work trial. We have some probation periods that we start people on because company is not for everybody. As I said in the podcast in the beginning, the pace here is insane. I went on vacation for the first time. So I've been here for 6 months. I went on vacation for 10 days. I came back. I felt like I needed to onboard from the beginning. Like everything changed. And when I'm in it, I feel like it's an evolution. But the fact that just being gone for 10 days, it feels like a complete revolution in the company. That pace is just not for everybody. And that's okay, because I'm very firm believer that there's different cultures and different environments that the best fit for different personalities and different people. So we try to be very upfront with how things are and how chaotic they are. And we prioritize people that don't look for clarity, but can create clarity out of chaos, because it is absolutely chaotic otherwise. And if we start to look for people that can explain it to us, that's the only way that we can succeed.
The way you describe going on vacation and feeling very different, it feels like when you don't see your kid for a few days and they're just like completely different. You're like, how did you grow up so fast in 3 days?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me try to summarize the growth levers that you're finding are working. And I'm trying to think about this from the perspective of an AI startup trying to think about, hey, shoot, how do we grow faster? What is Lovable figured out? So it feels like number one is just build something lovable, something that blows people's socks off, but also in a market that is growing, that people want to pay money for. Like you can build something lovable that nobody actually cares about, that there isn't much money going to this space. There's no tide pushing it forward and it won't work.
I call it minimum lovable product. Like it shouldn't be minimum viable product anymore. Viability is left back in 2010s. Now it's minimum lovable product. That's the only thing that matters.
I love how these AI tools are letting us, like PMs have always had these, so what are they, smoke door test, or like, what's the term?
Mm-hmm.
Just like, or it's not a real product. Painted door
test.
Painted door. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. And it's like, okay, we just have a landing page. There's nothing there. And now AI makes it easier to do that. And it's like more full featured.
Yeah. Well, it's the feedback cycle is just completely collapsed. You can go from idea to some product that is functioning to user feedback within a day if you want to. I mean, depending on how fast that you want to run or how complex the product is. For missions, it took us a couple of weeks to vibe code it to the point where, because we also, I have a full-time vibe coder on my team. He's amazing. So like he wanted to create videos, like he did a bunch of designs for it too. So we he took him a couple of weeks. We're testing it now, and then we'll push it in the product. But it's a completely different development lifecycle. Before, it would just take so many more steps from user research to the design sprints to prioritizing on engineering roadmap to build something minimal and viable to actually test to the long testing cycles. Now it's just like, boom, let's go. Could have taken us a day. We just decided to take a couple of weeks to get all of the video pieces correct.
I saw you launch this on LinkedIn. To me, it looked like a full product launch. It is interesting to hear. It's just a sort of prototype.
Yeah,
it's a prototype.
Minimum lovable product.
Okay, I got to ask, you said you had a full-time vibe coder. What the heck is this? Is this like an engineer? Is this something else? What is a full-time vibe coder?
Great question. This is a new job role that is actually popping up here and there. It's absolutely fascinating to watch this development because I see vibe coding as a skill being added to a lot of job descriptions for designers, for product managers, for marketers, which I think is a really interesting shift. Finally, Excel can move over. Like we have a new skill to add that is super empowering and not 30 years old. But vibe coder, so his name is Lazar, and he actually was chief of staff in his previous role. So he's not technical at all. He's self-taught in technical aspects of it, but he was very early on in the vibe coding wave. So he learned a lot about it. He was user of all of the vibe coding tools, Lovable included. And when I was coming into the role, I'm like, I have so many projects that I will vibe code myself. So I run this woman-only hackathon she builds. I vibe coded the first version of that site and submission process for applications. And then other people came in and started building on top of it. But I vibe coded, but then I don't have enough time sometimes because I need to run around and I want to push out so many different initiatives that I want to test in the market with our own products. So we connected on social and I'm like, would you join us? And he joined us for part-time. And I'm like, you're bringing so much value. For example, we partnered with Shopify and he created a bunch of Shopify Lovable templates vibe coded for us. And it's been so helpful to have somebody like that is just like pushing all of these things out. And he's an absolute expert. So he's teaching us all too of what is possible with Lovable because he's on the cutting edge of constantly pushing it to the limit. So I really enjoy having that role, which I've never had before in my life and in my team.
I'm not surprised. I've never heard of this role before as a real full-time job. Do you think this is a thing people will start hiring for at non-vibe coding companies?
So I vibe code myself. So I would put that as a skill on my resume. Now it took me a while to figure out. By the way, everybody's like, oh, you just go and and it all happens automatically. It takes you a couple of iterations, couple of projects until okay, this is how I need to translate it, how I need to think about it. But for me, it's when I started scaling of what I want to vibe code, that's where his value really came in. Because I'm like, okay, I understand what is possible. I know what needs to be achieved. And some of these apps I want to be almost full-blown built because they're not going to get incorporated into the product anytime soon. They don't need to be. I'll just link to them from our headers, so to speak. And he really accelerated that velocity for me. So once you get into vibe coding and you see its value within your organization, leaning into somebody like that just accelerates your velocity because it is like an engineer on your team. It's just they're not, to me, his part technical, but they can be non-technical if they're really good.
That is fascinating.
This episode is brought to you by Persona, the verified identity platform helping organizations onboard users, fight fraud, and build trust. We talk a lot on this podcast about the amazing advances in AI, but this can be a double-edged sword. For every wow moment, there are fraudsters using the same tech to wreak havoc, laundering money, taking over employee identities, and impersonating businesses. Persona helps combat these threats with automated user, business, and employee verification. Whether you're looking to catch candidate fraud, meet age restrictions, or keep your platform safe, Persona helps you verify users in a way that's tailored to your specific needs. Best of all, Persona makes it easy to know who you're dealing with without adding friction for good users. This is why leading platforms like Etsy, LinkedIn, Square, and Lyft trust Persona to secure their platform. Persona is also offering my listeners 500 free services per month for 1 full year. Just head to withpersona.com/Lenny to get started. That's withpersona.com/Lenny. Thanks again to Persona for sponsoring this episode.
Let me kind of go back to summarize just real quick the growth levers. I want to move in a somewhat different direction. So things that help Lovable grow. One is just build something that blows your socks off, as you said. I love these phrases out here. The second is make noise in the market. And the way that Lovable does this, the CEO's tweeting constantly. You build something that blows people's socks off so that they share things on socials themselves, plus this influencer marketing component. And just this idea of building in public has been really helpful. This point about activation being kind of embedded within the product team of the AI experience, of the AI agent, essentially. So it's essentially not the growth team thinking about activation. It's the product team that is building the AI magic that is obsessed with activation. And it feels like those are the main growth levers. Is there anything else that I missed?
Community. I think community is really important here because you need to bring people together as they're exploring these capabilities and as they're seeing what's possible so they can bounce off each other and they can help each other out. So I would say community also amplifies that word of mouth. It amplifies all of the social posting. It amplifies retention mechanisms for you as well. The community has been a huge part of Lovable success as well. And that's something that was started very early on. It runs on Discord, so it's nothing fancy. It's not like we build anything completely from scratch for ourselves. And it has hundreds of thousands of members, and it's very lively. We have community managers that are making sure that all of the questions get answered and the right groups are being created. We have incredible ambassador program now as well of people doing it. So I would say community here, again, of really making software more human is very important role. Now, obviously, not everybody can build a community, but maybe at least plugging into somebody's community is quite important as well. And then there's another one, unless you have a question on community.
No, keep going.
And another one is giving your product away a lot. And for AI products, it may feel counterintuitive because they're so costly. Every single interaction with an AI product costs companies something. There's an LLM pass-through cost that is coming through. And a lot of, especially traditional tech companies I see are gating AI immediately behind a paywall because they're sitting on a really cush, high margin profile. And the moment that you start giving AI away for free, you're like cutting into those margins with like a knife through the butter. Now, at the same time, AI being so new and the capabilities being so new, you have to remove the barrier of entry. You have to give a lot of your product away for free. But by the way, I don't just mean freemium. Freemium to me is just like a baseline. If you're in the new category, you need to let people explore what it is for free and get that initial wow moment. It's not a aha moment, by the way. It doesn't need to be a aha moment anymore. It just needs to be a wow moment. And for Lovable is that first preview generation after your first prompt, even though it's absolutely not going to be complete thing of what you want to build, but you just go, this is possible. Like I had no idea. I want to keep building. And it becomes an addictive exercise. But we also give so many of our Lovable credits away to every event, to every hackathon. If you want to host a Lovable hackathon, we will sponsor it and give all of the participants credits away for free. So we give them away as candy, and we basically track them, all of our LLM costs on freemium and giveaways as our marketing costs. And it doesn't go into our something we need to reduce to make our margins better. It goes into, this is something that we need to spend more in because this is part of our growth secret sauce.
Okay, I want to hear more about the growth secret sauce. That is extremely interesting. I haven't heard of that as a strategy, and I can see why this makes sense. If the strategy is blow people's socks off so they can tell their friends, post on all the socials, the trick is get more people to try it. And so this is, and it's such a new crazy thing. Like, why would I pay money? Why would I even go take the effort to like sign up for an account if I don't know what this is? I don't know what I'm doing with it. So I could see how this loop goes faster and faster by giving it away.
Exactly. And again, this is very uncomfortable sometimes for companies that AI companies have lower profile of margins. That's absolutely true. To find an AI company with 80, 90% margin profile is absolutely impossible. Let's be real. We're all sitting somewhere in the 40% or so, which is a lot smaller. So any time that you look at those AI costs as your cost center, that's when you're in trouble. You fundamentally have to flip the script and say, I need to expose to people of what is possible, and I need to remove the monetization friction out of it. Because if you don't, nobody's ever going to try it, or you're going to be very easily overtaken by a competitor that will give it away. And let's face it, once you hook people, they're more likely going to stay with you. So you obviously have to still work on the retention strategy there. But if you can have, like for our case, if one of our users stands up and say, hey, I'm going to have a hackathon at my work on Lovable. Can you give us all some free credits to play with? Why would we prevent a person who wants to do all of the marketing and activating job for us in their company from using us? Of course, we're like, take it. How much do you need? How much would you like? We will sponsor it all. We will give you anything that you need. So we're really leaning into people that are wanting to show this magic to those around you and empowering them as much as possible. And that is something that actually applies to every single product. And I agree, this is not a growth strategy that I've ever applied in my life on like giving product away as much as possible. But it is something that is more and more becoming something that I see that is absolutely non-negotiable.
What I'm feeling is like, the more mind-blowing it is, the more you should give it away for free.
Yeah.
Especially in a competitive market where everyone is, it's hard. There's like so many companies trying to do this thing. And so it's almost like the better you are, the more you should give it away.
Right.
And this also explains why so much VC money has to be raised for these sorts of companies, because this is not cheap. Like you said, you're paying all these foundational models a lot of money.
Yes and no. Because I'm only going to say no is because, so take a look at Lovable. We're over 200 million in ARR. At this point, we're 100 people large. So our headcount costs are very low.
Let me just make sure people hear that. 200 million ARR. I didn't realize 100 people work at Lovable.
Yes. And 6 months ago, we had 30 people working at Lovable. So we tripled. So for us, it's a really big deal. We tripled our company size. We're going to quadruple it by the end of, I know. We're big boy and girls now. But for perspective of the headcount costs, it's minimal. So we have very little in that going on. We are not spending a lot on paid marketing. So we're not a big paid marketing driver. Yeah, we're spending on influencer marketing, but it's not majority of our growth. It's low double digits, to be fair, because it's not why we're successful. It's amplifying our success, and it's helping us reach new audiences. We don't have really large sales team. We have only a couple sales folks, and they're just starting to ramp up their enterprise efforts. So we don't have like really big enterprise demand gen costs as well. So from that perspective, if you like look at the equation and you say, well, okay, if you're not going to do a lot of paid marketing, if you're not going to do a lot of sales, because we're really only working on hand raisers of people that are saying right now that they want to buy Lovable, then you don't have big costs, so you can spend it on product. And that is the beautiful part, because when we're giving our product away to our customers, we're not competing with other companies in that space, because they're just going to use Lovable in their hackathon or on their own. And we're not competing on AdWords or like in paid Google, where everybody's buying real estate for eyeballs. So from that perspective, I think about it more as a shift of where we spend and cost. And honestly, it's more efficient way to do paid marketing almost in a sense, because of the cost per eyeball that we get there is quite a bit lower compared to if we were trying to compete it on the Google. So yes and no to your statement, because it actually does not deteriorate margin profile. We're just shifting of where we're spending it.
That is an incredibly important point you're making there. So it's not like you're generating an incredible amount of revenue. So there is money available to spend. And what you're saying is, because it's been spreading through word of mouth mostly, you're not spending tons of money on salespeople. You're not spending tons of money on paid ads. This is just an amazing way to get more people to use it. So it's kind of like a marketing cost.
This is product-led growth.
Yeah.
To the max.
Yeah.
Supercharged. Yes, because you're literally using your product to drive that awareness by giving it away to the agents in your ecosystem that will do that distribution for you.
So fascinating. What a wild world we're living in. Free stuff for everyone.
Yes. I mean, it's great for consumers. This is like great time to be a consumer. You have so many options, like everybody's throwing themselves at you, giving your product away for free. So it's great to be in the market right now. I think it's the power should be with consumer always. But with software, power has not been with consumer previously because we were forced to use towards some solutions because of either how they were chosen for us or what was available in the market. And now that supply is almost infinite, the demand from the consumers can be very picky, and the one that serves it best will win.
And I think, again, it's important to highlight, this is not some kind of VC subsidized bubble-ish sort of thing. Like, there is a lot of money being generated that you are spending to help it grow faster. It's not like some kind of, we're just raising more money to give away more money. Like, you're actually making your own money. It's not it's not driven by VC money. Obviously, it helps.
I can't comment on specific margin details for us, but at the same time, the money that we're raising on VC is for future development and hardening our business. Not because we will not be able to survive without it.
Awesome. Okay, great segue to, I want to talk about product market fit in competition. You had this really interesting post that I don't think people grasp yet, which is that product market fit is no longer this like, we've done it, product market fit, and we're up and to the right. Now we just grow. Now we hire salespeople. It's going to be great. You've written that just product market fit is no longer this like, you've done it and you're good. It's this endless fight to keep it. Talk about what you're seeing there.
So I'll first start with what I've felt, at least before, when people were talking about product market fit, that, yeah, obviously always product market fit is an evolving thing, but the rate of that evolution was measured in years. On what is it that you need the next product market fit step function change, which often was called second horizon or third horizon, sometimes 5-10 years, sometimes even longer that you'd need to, depending on how good and hardy your initial product market fit was. But you'd spend years scaling the original product market fit. It was like blitz growth stage. Marketing, sales, growth was very important, that you just try to get it to as many people as possible. And then once you have saturation or the cost to getting to the marginal people becomes too high, you start thinking, okay, what else can I offer to help me reach additional people or sell more to existing users that I already have? And again, the main point here is it would take years to get to that stage where it became a question that you had to face really hard face to face. Now it's 3 months. And all of a sudden you have to face that question again. And it's happening because of two things, in my opinion. Number one, in AI technology of what LLM is capable of doing changes still very rapidly with new model release, with each new model release. So I think we'll stabilize at some point and it's going to become more marginal, but we're not there yet. So every 3 months or so, every single AI LLM provider creates a step function change in what is possible with that LLM. And when you have this new possibility in just an underlying technology that opens up in front of you, then it creates another ceiling of what is possible to build on top of it. And the tricky piece here is that it's not enough to just wait for that technology to get better and then start building on top. You have to build beforehand to like make a bet, and then it's the AI LLM to catch up, because when that model releases, you already need to have that functionality available. So that piece is, I've never been in a company where the fundamental capabilities are still changing so rapidly. And that's the product part. So the product can leap to the new expectations. But let's not talk about the market part as well. Consumer expectations have never changed this fast before. What we expected ChatGPT to be able to do and answer and how we wanted it to talk to us 8 months ago versus now is night and day. And like the deep thinking mode and how deeply it can go into answering questions and what is capable of building on top of it. So consumer perception has never changed this fast too. It's this unprecedented time of consumers all of a sudden, like in a month, saying, "Oh, it's not doing this yet. Like I'm bouncing." Before, again, consumer perceptions would be years to take. It's actually technology would sometimes be able to already address it, but consumer perception has not been changed yet. So it would take a long time. So we're like in this really weird part where both product and market is shifting so rapidly that every 3 months, I feel like we have to recapture our product market fit. And not just recapture on the same technology and with same customers. It's both of those pieces of the equation change every 3 months. And it's terrifying in a way. It's also very confusing in a way, because We're a $200 million company, and we're not solely focused on marketing and sales because we still have to recapture our product market fit. And you know that the team that finds your product market fit is very different than the team that usually scales your company. Yet we have to find the team that is capable of doing both on an ongoing basis. Now, I think every AI company is on this product market fit treadmill. Hopefully that treadmill speed slows down. If not, I think we're going to come up with like crazy things of what this LLM and AI will be able to do if it's going to continue at this cusp. But it's a weird place to be in because every 3 months we have to throttle on our scaling efforts and just reinvent and then scale again. But it's like short blitz of growth, not these long year-long commitments.
What makes this very real is just this week, apparently OpenAI had this whole code red moment where even though OpenAI, by far the leading AI assistant, over almost 1 billion, I think, monthly active users, like basically synonymous with AI around the world, with Gemini 3 launching, their market share just started to dip really quickly.
Yeah.
I think they lost like 6-something% in like a week. And so even OpenAI, like ChatGPT, the original, the one that everyone uses
Yes.
constantly, is in danger.
It's like nobody's future is bulletproof yet. And 10 years ago, if you asked me if a $200 million company was at risk in losing product market fit in the next 3 months, if it's experiencing 10% month-over-month growth, I would have said you're crazy. And now that's the reality that we live in. And I don't know. It's fascinating to world in. What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. And very stressful, but the prize at the end is massive. That's that's why
Yes.
this is worth doing. Not just monetarily, but just the impact it's going to have on the world, the way we people build and ship and live.
Exactly. The ceiling of what is possible has been raised so massively that we haven't even became too closest to even see it, I believe. So I think that that's the exciting part of it.
The way I've seen you write about this product market fit challenge is the traditional approach is you have these like core users that are using it, happy with it, and then you expand to the adjacent users and expand to the next. And you're basically just trying to recapture that same core constantly and don't even have time to go adjacent.
Yeah, Bengali wrote a really wonderful article. It was many years ago at this point on adjacent user theory, and that your product market fit expansion, when you're in no growth stages, the biggest opportunity for you to go after is this, what he called adjacent user, which are just outside of your core user. They have somewhat similar needs, but maybe they're in different geo. Maybe they have slightly different use case, slightly different needs. And your biggest way to continue growing your product market fit without having to go to the next horizon is to capture those that next group of users. The interesting piece here of how I relate to it, we still have the core users. And by the way, those core users are mostly pioneers right now that are excited by the capabilities. Then there's latent majority that is filled with adjacent users. And the issue right now, which I'm actually quite worried about us like as a category, is that we're constantly focusing on recapturing the pioneers. We don't have time to go after adjacent users. And I'm worried of whether there's going to be a gap in the space where we're actually going to alienate the latent majority because we're so hyper-focused on just staying top of mind and top of capabilities on the pioneers. But I don't know the right answer here because without the pioneers, you need pioneers for latent majority to follow. But if you take pioneers and you take them too far into capabilities, will latent majority never be able to catch up? Maybe this is a fruitless concern, but it's just like something that I think about because at this stage we should be working on adjacent users. And I would argue maybe OpenAI definitely started to do that with how many people they have on their platform, but not most of the other AI companies.
I completely see what you're thinking there. Like a brand could just become known as that's just for like startups and prototyping and it's not for serious work.
Yeah. Or it's for techies. It's like for tech people. It's like it never actually enters the people outside of our little bubble that we live in.
We kind of touched on this a little bit of just like working on AI companies, challenging, stressful, a lot of work. What's your advice for folks that are thinking about, should I join a Lovable? Should I join a Cursor? Should I just go work at Google, Microsoft? Not to throw them under the bus or anything, but just, although Google, very, very successful in AI now, maybe less AI focused company.
I really believe that there's you need to understand what's the environment that is right for you. Just please understand that AI companies are very hectic at the moment. They're very unstable by definition of that product market fit treadmill, about that distribution of how they're actually distributed to the market, really changing about how product is even being developed in the first place. So if you are very comfortable in being in that messy middle and really comfortable of converting chaos into clarity for you and those around you, then yeah, AI company is a wonderful place for you to really absorb new skill sets right now. Because even before joining Lovable, when I kept seeing AI, I'm like, my gosh, like I'm so tired of seeing AI everywhere. Is it really changing the world? Like, is it really changing the way people work? And when I was at Dropbox before, and yeah, we would use AI here and there, and I would use ChatGPT. I've never used AI there the way I use AI at Lovable and the things that I'm capable of accomplishing at Lovable. And I don't know if I've ever would have made that leap so fast unless I joined Lovable. If I would have just read or listened about it, it's just different compared to be surrounded by people where it's expectation. It's not like a nice to have or something that somebody's asking you to do. This is just how you get things done. And you have to think about everything of like, what can AI do here versus where do I add value? Versus like in the traditional sense of work is like, I start with my own value and then I augment it with AI. And here, like the mindset is completely shifted. Now, I don't think AI is replacing everybody's job. So like, please don't look at it as that cliche saying. I actually often call AI as like average intelligence that helps me get the platform up. And then I add my human thinking and my human creativity on top of it to get it to the next level. But at least I can get this base level done with AI really freaking quickly. So from that perspective, I think if you want to leapfrog on what it means to be AI native employee and how to use all of these AI tools, you should go to AI company. But if you know that your superpower is in more structure, in more definition, in really high specialty of things, because in the AI companies, they're all fairly small. So you'll have to generalize quite a bit and have a lot of ownership of areas that you usually maybe not have ownership over, then you shouldn't join it, because AI companies will evolve to be more stable too. So it's just a matter of time on where you can join. So I would just urge people to look at their superpowers and the type of environments that really speak to them so they can feel happy, because this can lead to burnout for wrong type of personalities very quickly.
Yeah. My sense is if you want work-life balance, don't join one of these companies because that's just not the way they work.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, I have family, I have 2 kids. I feel like I have a very good work-life balance. But I put in boundaries for myself. Like I know when I need time off, because I know when my brain starts to overheat, so to speak. But I also know that work is my hobby and it's my passion. And this is the best work of my life that I'm doing right now. There's no other place that I'd rather be than to be here. So I think that you just need to be more careful about setting your own boundaries that you know you need. But I mean, let's face it, I don't think anybody has work-life balance regardless of what company that they work at, even at Google or like Microsoft or any of the others. I think everybody is freaking out and running as fast as they can. It's just they're running it in different structures.
I'm really glad you said that and corrected me there, that it is possible to work at a company, one of, if not the fastest growing company in history, and actually have work-life balance, to get sleep, to spend time with your kids and family.
You just have to protect it ruthlessly, but you also need to be realistic with how much is expected out of you. And you need to feel confident that you'll be able to deliver it. And by the way, you won't be able to deliver it unless you use AI in many aspects of your work life. So that's like the piece that helps you actually get to hit those expectations of outcomes that you need to do and the velocity. But I'm very protective of my personal time with kids. Like, why did I have children if I'm not going to spend time with them? So like those are part of the non-negotiables that I bring along with me in every single work.
For people that maybe have trouble setting boundaries or just not good at this, anything, what works for you? Is it as easy as just telling people, here's where I need to leave? What advice do you have for people to set boundaries like that?
So first of all, I would not think about it as a work-life balance. There's no such thing as balance. So balance feels like, oh, I have enough time for everything. I don't have enough time for anything. But I prioritize my family in some moments. I prioritize work in other moments. And I don't try to balance the two. I go where I'm needed and where I go and I feel like I'm not going to regret the choices that I'm making today. So I'm constantly trying to put myself in the future and say, well, I resent myself if I make this choice right now. And if the answer is yes, I don't make that choice. And sometimes I have to say no to Anton and say, like, I can't make it, or I won't be there. I need to be here with my family. Or like today I need to cancel my day. My kid is sick and he needs me. And I need to take him to the doctor. So I think that just making in the moment, more like in every day, even sometimes in the hour decisions, to me works better than trying to balance something that is completely unachievable and it feels overwhelming to even think about. But I prioritize this in my sleep, my health, my workout schedule, my kids, my family, my husband, and just my downtime, because I know that I'm most creative once I have separation from work, because then I come in with like all cylinders firing and I have so many more ideas about it. So to me, it's actually part of doing my best work is to take time off.
That is really great advice. I want to touch on what it's like to work at Lovable, because it feels like Lovable is at the cutting edge of what working in product is going to be. So you mentioned a little bit about how you're always talking to AI, asking questions. Is there any other kind of anecdotes of just how people operate at Lovable that is really unique or weird or funny or interesting that might be helpful for people to try in their company?
Yeah, I mean, we use Lovable at Lovable a lot. Like all of our internal tools are built on Lovables. We actually have our first hackathon on Lovable happening next week, where we're gonna entire company is just gonna take full day to vibe code and see what we actually have happened. We prototype everything on Lovable, so our specs. Yeah, we do still have a written spec, but it always accompanied by a Lovable prototype that everybody can interact with and to click around with and provide feedback, and everybody bunches in and also like does some edits if they have any better ideas. So I create mocks on Lovable. So for example, if we need to make some pricing changes or pricing page changes, I take a screenshot of our pricing page. I go to Lovable. I say, recreate this pricing page, make these changes. And then I send that to my engineering team saying, hey, this is what I want to happen. And then like they take it from there. So we just, and ChatGPT, I use a lot for brainstorming, especially the deep thinking mode. I love it. It takes a long time, but it's so worth it. Sometimes it has crazy ideas. Sometimes it does. Like sometimes I was like, yeah, this is like nothing new to me, so it's not interesting. But it gets me thinking, and it gets me look at the different angles. And I use Granola a lot, for example, because to me it's super helpful to get AI summaries of the meetings. And it's very powerful for me. I use Whisperflow a lot because I feel like I have no time to type anymore. So I just like talk to my phone and talk to my laptop all the time in order to do it. But we're even thinking about all of the customer support automations that are done through AI. How do we, every single aspect of what we do is asked, what can AI do here first? And then how we can add ourselves into the equation. But Lovable for us, having unlimited credits at Lovable is a pretty awesome perk, I have to say. Like I sometimes have to pinch myself. I'm like, I get paid to vibe code. It's like so fun.
I feel like that engineer or that vibe code engineer, he's like actually getting
my
paid to
dream
vibe
job.
code.
I want his
Yeah,
job.
exactly,
I feel
exactly.
like I got into the wrong line of profession here.
Oh man. Okay. Is there anything else about Lovable? Because what I think about, actually, I interviewed the Perplexity founders back in the day, years ago, and they shared, like, before we talked to anyone for advice, we first asked ChatGPT it, and I was just like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. How can you possibly work that way? And now that's how everyone works. And so I'm curious, just, I don't know, I don't know how Anton works. Is there anyone else that just like way in the future of here's how things might be?
So for me, especially for product and growth, and even marketing at some point, it's in some capacity. When I have an idea in my head, it sounds so freaking cool. And sometimes I can even like I put it in paper and it's like, oh, this is like we need to do it. And then like I go and try to vibe code it, and I'm like, oh, like this, like I don't see the magic anymore. Or I can't envision it anymore. Or sometimes I'm like, yeah, and like there's more. So to me, it's actually has helped really complete the ideation process for me quite a bit, because then I actually try to go and build it, and it breaks down some of the elements of what's important, what's not. So it's taking me on product development lifecycle so much further down. And then it creates a much better communication vehicle with my engineers too, because like I then can tell them exactly what's important, what not. So to me, it's been great because sometimes we envision things that are so much better than the reality. And before, until it hands it off to design, like we would never be like designers would do it for us and try to make it awesome, versus I often stop my ideas in tracks super early on without pushing it forward, versus other times I might have pushed it for too far too long, even through design queue or even like pitching to leadership. And I find that very powerful because it calibrates me really quickly.
Awesome. Okay. Last question. I want to talk about something that you've written about that is a really, I think it's a really important topic. Something that we should surface is you wrote this post called "I'm Worried About Women in Tech." Talk about what you're seeing here, what you're noticing, what you think might be going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, there's actually conflicting data points about how women, you're talking about women, right?
Yeah, women in
tech.
tech.
Yeah. There's conflicting data points about how women are keeping up with AI technology and wave, because there's a bunch of reports that has been done that show massive gap between women adopting AI versus men adopting AI, which points the story that men are just like widening the gap of like accessibility for technology. And whoever's adopting AI right now is getting paid the most, gets the most opportunities. I mean, we're seeing like insane acqui-hires right now where people are getting paid more for their talent than for the companies that they've created. And that's like a really interesting trend that is occurring. And a lot of it is fueled on this wave of AI. And women are not really present there. Like if you can think about like $1 million acqui-hire that has been in the news that is a woman, like I can't think of one. If you look at AI companies and their CEOs, most of it is men. If you look at the company's composition of in the AI companies, it's mostly men. To me, this really came to the head of when I came to Lovable, and I'm like, it's pink, it's purple brand, it's a heart, it's lovable. I'm like, I'm sure this is where it's 50-50 men versus women. And although we don't collect this information, but just like through third-party autofill, we saw it's like 20% at most. And I'm like, what is happening? Not again. Why is this again not being adopted by women? And obviously, I don't know all of the answers. I think that this is early on that we can shortcut it. And by the way, I also don't want to put this as an indication that men are to blame, because I think men are doing a wonderful job really spearheading the horizons and showing us what's possible and like leading the charge. I'm just afraid that so many women are stuck in that latent majority that is just not catching up. And my worry is that it's going to affect the hireable talent. It's going to step us back again in the composition of the workplace, of the diversity. And maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't, like whichever side that you sit on. But I think that it needs to be built for everybody in the world. And for that, it needs to be built by a representative sample of people that are behind the product as well. So I just find it fascinating that even when the barrier to building has been lowered, versus like you don't need computer science degree, which I appreciate. There's not that many women that are getting. We're still seeing the gaping gap on the adoption between genders, which is I don't know. There's like something very frustrating about that.
Yeah, the thing that struck with me from your post is there has been a lot of progress being made in the last decade. And now AI is just kind of turning it all back, turning it all around.
Hopefully not. I think that we're early on enough that we can bridge the gap. I think sometimes women just need space and ability to discover it. And that's what we're doing at Lovable. We have this initiative, She Builds, where we create a hackathon for women only, and we give them unlimited access to Lovable for 48 hours, and they come together as a community and they build together. And there's like beautiful things that start to come out of it, which I've never anticipated before. But so many women in that hackathon for us build help with their elderly parents, or with their kids, or with the household, or for their church group, or for the kids basketball team solutions, which are hyper local, hyper relevant, very needed for what they need in their life, and something that was never been able to build before because of how expensive software was, because it would never going to become potentially $100 million companies, but it also doesn't need to be anymore. So I just want to bring women to build more and vibe code more so we can have more diversity in software that is even created, because I think that we all have a unique take on what problems that we can solve. And I want everybody's voices to be heard.
I'll give the URL for She Builds. I pulled it up while you're talking, shebuilds.lovable.app.
And fully vibe coded on Lovable. This is our
cool.
minimum viable product.
Minimal lovable product.
Minimal lovable product.
There it is. So when is this happening? Is this December 15th, 18th? So it's...
Yeah,
okay,
we
it's coming
have
up.
it. We're running it constantly. So our
Cool.
next cohort starts December 15th, but we're going to have more. We're
Over and
planning
over.
a massive one on International Women's Day. So that's the one that if you can come join us.
Awesome. I don't know if you saw, okay, so some glimmer of hope. I don't know if you saw this tweet where I tagged you the other day, or maybe it was this today. I was looking at my most recent podcast video performance, and the top 4 are all women, and they're all AI oriented, and they're above Stuart Butterfield, founder of Slack, above Gamma's CEO Grant. So maybe a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's lots of glimmers of hope. I think we can just all lean in and make sure that nobody is left behind in this wave. And that's not to stop people that are marching ahead. This is just to open up opportunities for everybody around us.
Awesome. And we'll link to that post if people want to get a deeper perspective of what you're seeing. Elena, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Is there anything else you want to remind people of before we get to our one question lightning round?
I guess the only other thing that I will share is for AI companies when it comes to hiring. It's really interesting also the kind of the shift in the type of personas that end up being hired that I see, for me at least, it's quite different compared to anywhere that I've worked before. And that is, there's this narrative going in the market always that like new grads have no jobs in the market left because all of the entry-level jobs are automated. I actually think that's quite false because new grads, especially AI native new grads, so it's very important for kids that are entering into the I shouldn't say kids, young adults that are entering into the workforce, that they really know AI, which is, there's another like really big issue that our schools are not teaching AI students. So this is like something else that we need to fix as a category, because otherwise we're literally setting up our young for a complete failure. But I think it's incredible to see some of those new graduates come in and what they're capable of doing. We have multiple new graduates at Lovable that are working, and I learned so much from them. And you need to obviously have the right atmosphere where people with experience, like old guard like me, that can look at the new guard and really hear them and see them and really change the way that I operate based on how they do things. So make sure that you bring some of that fresh talent that doesn't understand any of the baggage that we came from, and that can really look at the future in technology and what can unlock from a completely new lens. So highly recommend putting those into your team as like little fireballs that are going to be sometimes hard to contain, but can start the best initiatives for you forward. And then it's also interesting that there's a really high demand for ex-founders now, for like those people that are truly have a lot of agency and high autonomy. So instead of just having people that have been working in the corporate world, the failed startup founders are now hot demand for a lot of these AI companies. So like these personas that we traditionally would not prioritize in companies to hire are now becoming the hottest commodity and the highest going talent, which is, I think, is fascinating, and it's like the wonderful thing that is changing how the culture inside operates.
That is really interesting and really empowering. Just this idea that if you're a new grad, there's hope. You're not going to be out of a job.
Absolutely.
And you might have an advantage. Yeah.
You do have it. You have to lead with that. That's the thing. Like you have to lead with the things that you are capable of achieving, knowing that what you have with AI, because that is a lot of people, especially in traditional tech or in more traditional companies, they're looking for somebody to show them, because it's really hard to figure it out on your own versus coming in and seeing and then copying.
Well, Elena, with that, we reached our very exciting lightning round. Because it's your 4th time, I'm not going to ask you all the questions I always ask you, so I'm just going to ask you one question. So Lovable is based in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm curious, just like, what's something you love about Stockholm that you weren't expecting? Is there like a food, a restaurant? I don't know, something.
Well, you always have to say Swedish meatballs. I mean, I've never liked meatballs before. And now it's so good here. It's so good. So like every time one of my meals here throughout the day involves it. But I
It sounds
actually
really
really
good.
love the, yeah,
Really good sounds.
they're I don't know, they just taste different. I
This is
never
not
had,
like the IKEA. This is not like the IKEA Swedish meatballs.
well, I have been to IKEA here because that is a Swedish
Yeah.
company too. It like reminded me of in-person Amazon. It was like absolutely incredible. IKEA here is like next level. But Swedish meatballs for sure. Honestly, how clean the city is, like it's kind of incredible. The architecture, like everything is so built out. It's like picture perfect, like it's on the card. I don't know. It's different compared to like most of the large cities that I've been at that are a little bit more worn down.
So fun. Makes me want to get some meatballs.
Yeah, just visit during the summer. Otherwise, the
During the
daylight here is
summer,
really
okay.
is really tight during the winter.
Okay, good tip. Okay, 2 final questions. Where can folks find you online if they want to reach out, maybe learn more, and how can listeners be useful to you?
Yes, please find me online on LinkedIn. Please feel free to follow me. Always engage on my posts if you want to engage with me, because that's the place that I always talk to people. I have my newsletter as well that baby steps compared to what Lenny has, but it's elenaverna.com. I also that's where I post most of my findings that I experience at my work. So if you want to continue seeing how my thinking evolves or the patterns that I notice, that's where to find me. And how to be useful to me, really pressure test my thinking, because so many things are changing right now. I'm honestly not even sure myself of what is a pattern versus what is just a data point. So I'd love to just engage in as many conversations as possible and hear your opinions, because that will help us as an industry just understand what is actually happening and makes more sense out of this whole thing.
I'm just going to double click on your newsletter. Definitely subscribe to it. It's incredibly good. Everything we talked about here, Elena has written about in her newsletter in large part, and goes even deeper. It's just elenaverna.com. If you're like reading this on your podcast app or YouTube, you can just look at her name and just type it .com and you'll find it and subscribe and you'll be really happy. Elena, thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. Everything I wanted it to be. Thank you for sharing. I know you have a lot of work to do, so I appreciate you making time for this and for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving a review, as that really helps other listeners find the podcast. You can find all past episodes or learn more about the show at lennyspodcast.com. See you in the next episode.
Is performance marketing just something every company should be doing?
Hot take, paid is for everyone. If you look at the way each platform is doing, Google, you have to scroll pretty far down to get to an organic listing. Meta, it's almost a pay for play now.
When you take over for an agency at a company, you crush their performance within a month. I'm curious what you find they are doing wrong.
Instead of thinking about being on top of the page, and that's kind of like ego marketing, I want to be number one, I want to be there all the time. It's about showing to the right person as often as possible.
Any other tips for people just to experiment with the platform?
Each platform is different. The user behavior is different. Make sure you're not too hard on yourself if it doesn't work. It's okay to fail, because we're either winning or we're learning.
Today, my guest is Timothy Davis. Timothy has led performance marketing for all of Shopify for the past 2.5 years, and as a consultant has helped companies like Pinterest, LinkedIn, Redfin, and Eventbrite kickstart and scale their performance marketing teams. In our conversation, we get incredibly tactical on all things performance marketing and paid growth. When to start investing, how to run signs of life test on each platform, what platforms to investigate and what platforms to bet big on, what types of companies are best suited to invest big on paid growth, whether you should invest pre-product market fit or not, what agencies often get wrong, and what to look for in your investment when you're just getting started. Plus, what your first 3 hires should look like, tips for which platforms are most interesting right now, a peek at Timothy's actual reports that he runs to judge performance if you're watching this on YouTube, and so much more. This episode is for anyone who's trying to figure out how to kickstart or improve their performance marketing investment, and I guarantee you'll get something out of this that'll make your life better. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it in your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes, and it helps the podcast tremendously. With that, I bring you Timothy Davis. Timothy, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Long time coming.
Yeah, I'm really excited we're finally doing this. I actually posted on Twitter for people to suggest questions for this topic, and there's just so much interest in what we're going to be talking about, which essentially we're going to be diving deep into all things paid growth, all things performance marketing. By the way, I have a cold for people, if in case you wonder why I sound a little weird, but the show must go on. I want to start with just setting a little context for folks that aren't super familiar with performance marketing, paid growth. When we talk about performance marketing / paid growth, first of all, are those two terms interchangeable to you? And second of all, what falls under the umbrella of performance marketing / paid growth?
Paid can be a lot of things. It can be online, it can be offline, it can also even be affiliates. Typically, when I talk about performance marketing, it's about online only, but you could argue it's like offline could be performant, affiliates could be performant, stuff like that. They can be interchangeable, but I would recommend if you are talking about it to kind of specify which one you're talking about, because when you do say paid, because I'm in the industry, I would just, they do Google search and they do Meta and they do things like that. But if you do offline and you just say paid, we may be talking about things, but missing each other on two ships passing in the night. So I think historically, people, when they have said paid growth, have been fully focused on just online.
Just online. Okay.
But I would argue
Got it.
in the last couple of years, you could definitely roll offline into that conversation as well.
Okay. So performance marketing, when someone hears that term, it's essentially marketing that you can measure the performance of.
Correct. Yes. Nail on the head.
This episode is brought to you by BuildBetter.ai. Back in 2020, when AI was just a toy, Build Better bet that it could cut down on a product teams' operational BS. Fast forward to today, 23,000 product teams use purpose-built AI in Build Better every day. First, Build Better uses custom models to turn unstructured data, like product and sales calls, support tickets, internal communications, and surveys, into structured insights. It's like having a dedicated data science team. Second, Build Better runs those structured insights into workflows, like weekly reports about customer issues, context-aware PRDs, and user research documents with citations. It even turns stand-ups into action items that automatically get assigned and shared into your tools. Plus, with unlimited seat pricing on all plans, Build Better ensures everyone at your company has access to this knowledge. Truly, no data silos. In a world of AI demos overpromising and under-delivering, see why Build Better has a 93% subscription retention. Get a personalized demo and use code Lenny for $100 credit if you sign up now at buildbetter.ai/Lenny.
I'm excited to chat with Christina Gilbert, the founder of One Schema, one of our longtime podcast sponsors. Hi, Christina.
Yes, thank you for having me on, Lenny.
What is the latest with One Schema? I know you now work with some of my favorite companies like Ramp, Vanta, Scale, and Watershed. I heard that you just launched a new product to help product teams import CSVs from especially tricky systems like ERPs.
Yes, so we just launched One Schema file feeds, which allows you to build an integration with any system in 15 minutes as long as you can export a CSV to an SFTP folder. We see our customers all the time getting stuck with hacks and workarounds, and the product teams that we work with don't have to turn down prospects because their systems are too hard to integrate with. We allow our customers to offer thousands of integrations without involving their engineering team at all.
I can tell you that if my team had to build integrations like this, how nice would it be to be able to take this off my roadmap and instead use something like One Schema, and not just to build it, but also to maintain it forever.
Absolutely, Lenny. We've heard so many horror stories of multi-day outages from even just a handful of bad records. We are laser focused on integration reliability to help teams end all of those distractions that come up with integrations. We have a built-in validation layer that stops any bad data from entering your system, and One Schema will notify your team immediately of any data that looks incorrect.
I know that importing incorrect data can cause all kinds of pain for your customers and quickly lose their trust. Christina, thank you for joining us. And if you want to learn more, head on over to oneschema.co. That's oneschema.co.
Is performance marketing just something every company should be doing? Or is there certain business models where it's like, no, you're probably going to grow through other channels, mostly like SEO or sales or word of mouth?
Hot take. I would say paid is for everyone. If you look at the way each platform is doing, Google introducing AI plus with paid taking up like the first 4 spots, you have to scroll pretty far down to get to an organic listing. Meta, it's almost a pay for play now. You have to do promoted posts for people to even see your content. I would say it does depend on the industry you're in. If you're, say, leaning heavily into influencer marketing, that is still a paid component. You may not be doing meta ads, you may not be doing paid search, but that is a paid component. But I would say at baseline, everyone should be doing paid search. The way I usually explain it to people is paid search is user driven. You have to type in a relevant keyword for your ad to show. Anything else is more disruptive media. You're on Meta and you're looking at pictures of babies and cats, and then all of a sudden you see an ad for Shopify. You're watching a YouTube video, maybe a YouTube podcast, and then in between you get advertisements, maybe for Shopify, maybe for Pinterest, maybe for Eventbrite. So all of that being disruptive media may not make a whole lot of sense for where you are as a business. But I would say paid search, being user driven, having to type in a relevant keyword for your ad to show, should pretty much be for just about everybody.
Everyone should do it. Super interesting. There's also most companies grow through one growth engine primarily, say word of mouth or SEO or sales or paid. So for some companies, paid will be most of how they grow. Like, say, I always think of Booking.com and Credit Karma, and just like most of their growth came from paid growth, online paid growth. For some companies, it's just like a layer, like a small 10, 20% of their growth. What are signs that you have the potential for paid/performance marketing to be most of your growth, like say 70, 80%?
I always say, where are your users? You will have some data that will allow you to understand that, say right now, you're doing really well on TikTok. Some would argue that's an emerging channel right now. Great. If that's doing really well for you, maybe you because that content could be used on something similar like Snap, see how that does for you. You could also lean into your Google Analytics or whatever analytics tool you are using and see if you're already getting users from that platform. If you're currently managing that, if you don't have a profile on there, and obviously you don't have a presence, it would be really hard for users to find you and get there. But always look at the data that's available to you within your analytics platforms and say, users are already finding us here. How can we turn that knob up to 11? And you can do that with paid, because if they're already finding you through that channel, what would happen if you were to just turn it up to 11?
Mm-hmm. Is there an example of a company you worked with that's known that is an example of that, where you're like, oh, I see everyone's finding them on, say, Google. Let's go turn it to 11.
Yeah, so there was a company I worked with a couple of years ago called Hair Story in Ipsy. I know, very funny, guy with no hair working on a company called Hair Story. But they were doing really well from a Google shopping standpoint. But when I started consulting with them, we looked at the analytics and we actually saw that they were getting a lot of people from Meta and TikTok at the time. And TikTok was very, very new. And they didn't really know what to do with it. So said, we'll do a small test. We can start on Meta with just some, customer testimonials. Let's see how that does. We'll get interest in, build a funnel, get retargeting, and hopefully get conversions. TikTok was so new at the time that it was like, we don't know what's going to work. Let's just try with what is currently available. Then once we started doing it, we started noticing, hey, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a creative standpoint. We were kind of missing the mark of what we were using on Meta was not working on TikTok. So you can't always just take what is currently working on one platform and apply it to another, because it is a different user experience. It is a different mindset that the user has when they're on there. So that was an example of where we were able to take those instances, look at their data and say, they're already finding us here. How can we turn this up a little bit? And I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it was pretty exponential.
Okay, so the core advice here so far is look for where people are coming to you from today. And then that gives you a sign of where you should start to think about running paid ads, performance marketing on those platforms.
Yeah. And also there's a saying that my current director likes to use, which is signs of life. You can always do a very, very small test. You can just put a little money into a platform, see if there's a sign of life. If there is, then you can pull back and say, okay, we have signs of life. Now let's build a campaign around that. There's no reason to say, all right, we have a signs of life. Let's now turn it up all the way. Do we have the right creative? Do we have the right campaign? Do we have the right messaging for the users on this platform? Then let's take that approach as opposed to just, hey, signs of life, great, go run 100 miles an hour. Make sure you're doing the right thing when you get into those platforms.
Let's follow that thread. A lot of people run little experiments on, say, TikTok and Snap and Twitter and things like LinkedIn, and they often don't see a lot of results. And it's always like, hey, did we do it wrong? Or is it the platform's not working? I know it's like a very difficult question to give, like, here's how you do a sign of life test correctly. But what are some things that you think either people do often wrong when they're trying to experiment with the platform, or that you just think they should do when they're trying to look for signs of life?
The number one thing I tell people all the time is use your own data. Start with your own data. So take the existing customer base you have, load that up into the platform to build lookalikes. From there, you can do, and I'll use Meta as the example, you can do a 1% all the way up to a 10%. So a 1% match, 2%, 3%, so on and so forth. What I tend to do is build ad sets, one at 1%, because we know that one's going to be highly correlated to what we're looking for. Then a 2 to 4, and then a 5 to 7, and then an 8+. More times than not, the 8+ does not work. But there have been times where it has. So it's, hey, let's do it. Let's try it. But if you also have a very limited budget, because some people don't have the luxury of having an unlimited budget like we do in some of these other companies I've worked at, just start with the 1%. See what that sign of life is, because you already know that this is so tied to your existing customer base. If that sign of life is giving you a positive signal, now you have the information you need to build the campaign you need to be successful.
What are these percentages referring to? You may have mentioned it, but when you say 1%, 2%, 3%?
Yeah. So that is how closely tied they are to that user's behavior on the platform. So they're 1% tied to what they're doing. They're visiting similar pages, or they have similar behavior on the platform. So they're more than likely going to be tied to what that user, they're not going to be that user exactly, but they're going to be very correlated to them, where 10% is pretty wide base that you're going to hit.
I see. So the smaller the percentage, the closer they are, the closer of a lookalike they are.
Yep. There you go.
How do you know if it's the creative that is failing versus it's just like never going to work? Is there something that tells you that's what's not working?
It's $1 million question, to be honest with you, because you could look at some of the metrics that currently exist in the platform. Click-through rate basically just tells you, are the users engaged? Because start with the target. You're getting the impressions, they're there. Is the target right? That should be your first thing. Yes, the target is correct. Users that we want to see are seeing our ads, but they're not engaging with it. That would kind of be the first thing. But the part that I think you're really trying to ask is creative versus the content. Because sometimes, depending on the ad unit, you could have like a story creative that is literally the creative kind of has to stand on its own. Not necessarily the content that's in it, but something like an in-feed creative has a headline, a primary, a description, and a creative. That's where, honestly, the only way you're going to get an answer to that outside of the data that's available to you, like click-through rate, reach frequency, and all those things to kind of pull in more metrics, is a focus group to understand, hey, when you saw this image with this content, what was your result from it? Now you can build a test within the platform to do a control versus a test where, say, you take the creative with the same primary and the same description versus a creative that's just your logo with the headline and the description, and see what the results are. But more times than not, you're not getting the understanding from the user of, well, why doesn't that creative resonate with you? And they'll give you suggestions in the focus group. Why does that work better for you than not? So that's a really, really hard question to answer without having those dialogue with the user to understand that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How long do you recommend these tests run for, these signs of life tests? And I like this term, by the way. I haven't heard this before.
Ideally, in a perfect world, you're going to hear the word statistical relevance. Mathematicians will tell you exactly what that number is, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm a mathematician, but a lot of times it's budget constraint. So there could be a VP, finance, anyone like that could just come to you and just say, hey, you have $25,000 for this test. You only have 5,000. Just get that information, get that data. You can then also build an op size off of that. Hey guys, we worked with our Meta partners. We worked with our Google partners. We put $1,000 behind this test. We know that our impression share was this, our reach was this. If we were to put $10,000 into it, this is the expected return we can get from it, based on the click-through rate, the conversion rate that we got from the tests that we ran.
Got it. So basically, you have a limited number of dollars to spend. That'll tell you how long you could run one of these for.
Yeah.
Any other tips for someone that's trying to experiment with a platform early on for these Signs of Life tests? So one is try a lookalike that is like the most targeted version of the lookalike. So 1% you said, and then kind of incrementally grow and see like incrementally increase that percentage as you spend more. Any other tips, I guess, for people just to experiment with the platform?
Make sure you're not too hard on yourself if it doesn't work. A lot of times companies I've either consulted with or worked at, there was always pressure or there was always a need to succeed at whatever experiment we put into market. I believe in creating an environment where it's okay to fail because we're either winning or we're learning. And more times than not, if we put something new into a platform that we know nothing about, we're learning the bells and whistles, we're learning the functionality of it. Just know there's going to be things you're not going to understand because each platform is unique. Each platform is different. The user behavior is different. So give yourself some grace. Understand that this may not work. And as long as you're learning from it, you're going to be okay.
I love that. In terms of which platforms people should explore, obviously there's Google, there's Facebook, Instagram. What are the platforms people should seriously consider at this point?
Google for sure. And when we say Google, let's make sure everyone understands what Google entails. Google is YouTube, Google is Google Search, GDN, Google Display Network. There's a lot of things in Google that you can do. I always say if you have the creative available, you should really, really be looking at doing video because video is one of those things that I am very bullish on. It is doing really well when you measure it the right way. And as long as you can get that creative and get it consistently, just because you have one piece of creative, if it's doing well, you do need to have that creative refresh, kind of that flywheel going. Make sure you're doing Google search, again, user driven, YouTube and Meta contains both Facebook and Instagram. And then based on the data available to you, if you do see users on TikTok, definitely go after those. But if you're just kind of starting out and you're just want to get your feet wet into something, I would say start with Google search, then get into Meta. And if you have video available, definitely get into YouTube.
Awesome. Okay. So Google search, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. What about LinkedIn? Do you see things happening there for, say, B2B companies?
Yeah, LinkedIn is very expensive in comparison. So just know if you're going into LinkedIn, it's going to look almost 3 times more expensive than other channels. The targeting that's available on LinkedIn, knowing job titles, industries, actually targeting people at certain companies is very powerful. The example I always tend to use is that I worked at a company called SoftLayer. SoftLayer was acquired by IBM because they were trying to build out their cloud portfolio, couldn't do it. So they're like, hey, let's do the next best thing and buy this company. But when we were just SoftLayer, we were trying to get Coca-Cola as one of our clients. And you know those Coke freestyles where you can pick whatever drink you want and put the flavor in it?
No.
Oh man, delicious. These are great. Maybe it's a South thing, but basically you go up to a Coke freestyle and say, I want Dr. Pepper and I want cherry flavor in it. Or you want Coke Zero with cherry and vanilla in it. You can do that. It's kind of the freestyle you get to pick. The reason they wanted it to be cloud-based is because there's a ton of drinks in there. So you need to be able to efficiently and effectively say this store needs more Sprite, or this store needs more Sprite Zero, because you have your whole portfolio in this one machine. So they want to be able to update things more readily. And it was between us, AWS, and Microsoft. And met with the sales team and said, what do we need to do to win this? Because it was a big ticket item for us. And what we found out was they had two concerns about us. It was recency and private security. So what we did was we found out where the decision makers were. So in LinkedIn, we took anyone who works at Coca-Cola, we want you to see ads about security and recency. Outside of that, we also geo-fenced it, because you would think Coca-Cola, Atlanta, that's where the decision maker sits, but they were actually in LA. So in LA, we geo-fenced them, and we knew that they worked at Coca-Cola. The next time the salesperson got on the call with the team to say, hey, just wanted to check in, he was like, hey, I get it. Security's fine. Recency is fine. We hear you. That was great to hear, because it was something we were able to do on LinkedIn, and we did it in other platforms as well. But we knew we were able to get not only to that decision maker, but everyone around that decision maker to say, hey, these guys may be the ones we need to go with.
Okay, so just to mirror back what you're saying you ran ads on LinkedIn targeting the execs at Coca-Cola, trying to influence them to overcome these barriers they had to working with you guys. Amazing. I've seen people do that on Google search, but I've never heard of that. It makes so much sense to do on LinkedIn, and it worked. And did they know that you did this, or they're just like, oh, I just kind of changed my mind?
No, one of them was like, we get it. We're seeing it everywhere. We actually tried, because at the time we didn't have an offline team, we actually tried to buy the billboards around the office as well. But I didn't know enough at the time from an offline perspective of like the right people to talk to, how long it would take to do it. Yeah. So we were trying to pour it on hard.
That's incredible. Like, I could see why LinkedIn is more expensive. That's incredibly powerful. And is the advice then that LinkedIn makes more sense for like higher LTV, higher CB type of products?
Yeah, exactly. I would not recommend getting into LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn reps may kill me for this. I would not recommend getting into LinkedIn until you've tested Google and Meta first. Now, you could be an enterprise level company, and it does make sense to start with LinkedIn for sure. But depending on your audience, I would say more times than not, it would be a Google Meta discussion before going to LinkedIn.
Okay, so just generally start with Google and Meta. Is there one or the other usually? Is it like, I guess, yeah. Which one would you start with if you had to pick one?
Yeah, always Google search. I'm always going to say start with Google search, but it's also creative dependent. If you don't have the right creative for Facebook, it's going to be really hard to convert, because users are just going to either be turned off by what you're kind of putting out there. And then also depending on where your user base is. If they're not on Facebook, it's kind of a moot point. But if they're browsing around on GDN or YouTube, it makes more sense to go there.
And then you said this insight about video is performing super well right now, and you're recommending people use video. And the key there is you need to be able to make video ads.
Yeah, you got to make sure you have that flywheel.
And the flywheel is just people internally or some company agency that can make video ads for you.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. I guess, is there any advice there of just how to do that, or what ads work well, or anything there for someone else to try that?
So yeah, the thing with YouTube is I always say start with emotion. If you can have an emotional connection with the user, is going to be way more impactful and way more powerful than anything else. And to take that further, when I say emotion, that I'm talking about comedy, I'm talking about, happiness. It's not necessarily just, oh, we need an emotional connection with the brand. It is just making sure the user feels something after seeing your ad, because then they're more times than not going to remember it, which then they will take a favorable action after the fact.
That is super interesting. One last question about platforms. Are there any other platforms you see working for people that are emerging, maybe that people aren't thinking about? Reddit or Snap or X, or I don't know, anything along those lines?
When you say emerging channels, my brain kind of goes to connected TV, podcast, VR advertising, audio, voice search, and even AI stuff right now. I can tell you podcasts are doing really well for the people that I know are able to measure it correctly, right? Connected TV is also doing really well. You can take again, you're doing YouTube right now, being able to take that creative and repurpose it. But the VR stuff and the AI stuff, that is stuff that is, I would say, very emerging right now, because to be completely transparent, I haven't experimented with those things yet. I kind of like letting other people be the guinea pig and learning from them. And then hey, someone comes to me and they're like, hey, we have budget for this. Let's go ahead and test it. Great. Let's go. Let's see what we can learn.
Awesome. Podcast ads. I'm glad you suggested that. I'm a huge fan. Thank you. They're working really well for a lot of our sponsors, and I'm very biased, so you don't need to pay attention to me. But I also think there's a lot of opportunity there. Okay, let's talk about when to start investing in performance marketing / paid growth. So say you're like a startup. Do you have any advice for when it's time to start signs of life test, or even, and then also just when is it time to scale, to go like, okay, let's go big on this?
If you are a startup, typically whenever I consulted with them, it was, what are the goals? What are we trying to achieve, and when? Because if you're looking for something quick, paid needs to start immediately. Paid should have started yesterday, because SEO takes time. SEO, depending on the market you're getting into, if it's emerging, people may not even know your product exists. There was a product I was working on years ago that if you were traveling to a hotel and say it was a romantic getaway with you and your partner, and you wanted the hotel suite or bed room done up with like flower petals and champagne and stuff like that, they would do it for you. Well, they were working with someone before that was like, oh, we should totally be in paid search. And if you look at the keywords that they were doing, it was like booking hotel rooms. It's like, no, that's a complete disconnect. They're like, yeah, but we're trying to build awareness. You don't want to build awareness through search. You build awareness through display, media-based type media. When we transitioned all of their money over at the time, and this will age me, before Meta was a thing, when we transitioned everything over to GDN, that's when the company started really reaping the rewards, because we were building the awareness around the product. So it depends on how, what is the demand of the of your product and market. If you're doing something that is similar to another product and market, you could do competitor. I call it coattail riding. Say Lenny, you and I create a product that is similar to Monday.com. We can go out there and just start bidding on Monday.com and say, see why, Lenny and Tim are better than Monday.com, and start getting some people interested, maybe kicking the tires, starting free trials. But they also have other keywords that they can go after in market. But if you're going after something new, like hotel room, flowers, and I forget what keywords we were bidding on for that, because it was years ago. People weren't thinking of that. That wasn't something they were searching for. So it just really depends on A, when do you expect results? Because SEO can take time. And B, what is the demand in the market for your product?
Some people use paid ads to drive early growth, to bring customers, to help them figure out what to build, kind of pre-product market fit growth. Is that something you recommend? Is that something you advise against? Is that a strategy that you've seen work?
Yeah, product market fit is a huge thing. We've run into some of this at Shopify, and we definitely ran into this at IBM. So for the longest time, IBM is, we're a global company, we should be everywhere. But when we started looking at the data, it was, should we be everywhere? For example, Africa. We were in the whole continent. We weren't just in, say, South Africa or Egypt or something like that. And the more we dug into it, the more we realized the biggest issue wasn't necessarily that users weren't interested in our product and weren't able to, and weren't purchasing it. It was because we didn't have a product market fit, mainly from an operations standpoint. In Africa, there are multitudes of different types of currency. There's the franc, there's the rand, there's the shill, and we were just, hey, USD, thank you. So of course they weren't converting. unless they were going out of their way to make a way to convert that. So when we took a step back and we said, okay, where do we want to start? It was South Africa. That's really where we were trying to get quote unquote stronghold in. So we had to make sure we had the Rand available. Once we did that, we started doing tremendously better because we had a product market fit. They had demand for our product, and now we were able to serve them, meet them where they were.
So essentially you're saying probably not smart to run a bunch of ads if it's not working, if you don't have something people actually want yet in that product, in that market.
Right.
Okay.
Or able to convert.
Because conversion is going to end up being really low. No one actually cares about what you're doing.
All you're going to do is really annoy the users, because say in the future they are, hey, I'm still interested, but I don't want to use that product because I already tried. It's like, no, you can totally use it now. I already tried. I had a bad experience with them, and some users will hold that, you accountable to that one bad experience, and I'm just never giving you my business.
Interesting. So is that generally your advice if you're startup, you're not feeling like you actually have product market fit yet? Should you even experiment with and do signs of life tests, or should you hold off until it's like, okay, it's actually working, let's go?
From an operation standpoint, I always want to make sure those things are tied off. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to, again, if you have a major budget and you're trying to get awareness into a market, great. Yeah, you can go after a market, but just know that it's probably not going to convert very well.
Got it. So
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, great. Awesome. Very, very clear answer. Let's talk about the mistakes that you see companies make when they're investing in performance marketing. So we got introduced through Casey Winters, illustrious former podcast guest, 2-time podcast guest, and asked him about you. And he told me that when you take over for an agency at a company that you work with, you crush their performance within a month. I'm curious what you see and find they are doing wrong that allows you to be such a hero when you come in and take over.
I think agencies have playbooks. Now I've worked at agencies. I did consulting for a long period of time. And it was never an approach I took. I looked at each account and each company as its own thing. But I think a lot of agencies just come in and they go, oh, this is like A, B, and C company, and this is what we're doing. Copy, paste, done, move on. And they're also not willing to get deep into the weeds of stuff. I may get a little too far into data than some other people. For example, like I have ops cadence that, myself and my team follow. So within that ops cadence, we have things like finance, performance, structure, keywords, ad copy, quality score, targeting, et cetera, et cetera. And then within each of those, we have specifics. For example, the keyword subsection is keyword granularity, brand versus non-brand, search query reports, negatives, so on and so forth. I feel like agencies don't necessarily get into all of those things every single month, where some of those we're doing weekly, some of those we're doing bi-weekly, and some of those we're doing monthly. But they touch the things that they think they need to touch. They turn on automated bidding. They're doing their search query reports, and then they just kind of move on with their day because they have 50 other clients they have to get to. Well, what about looking at your conversions? Where are we converting? Have we tested different landing pages? What is a better user experience that we can be getting users? Right now, it's a 5-step process. Can we get it to a 3? Partnering with like PMMs to say, hey, here's something that I think could help improve our, lead to conversion. Just stuff like that they're, too busy with too many other things to focus really, really deep into those. And typically whenever I managed an agency in the past and I consulted, I made sure that you weren't stretched thin enough that you couldn't do those things, because I'm a firm believer in hiring smart people and then getting out of their way. But each week having one-on-ones with them, just, spot checking things, just saying, hey, I looked at this doesn't look right. What's going on there? Oh yeah, I do that on this day. Okay, great. Just making sure you're covered, because sometimes people won't scream uncle when they should be screaming uncle because they think it's a sign of weakness. But let me know when you're overwhelmed. Maybe I have solution for you. Maybe there's a way I can coach you to be better at something, or we just need to hire more resources because the client portfolio you have is 5. And when we took them on, they were all at 100K, but now they're all spending 2 million plus. We need to offload some of that from you because you're doing such a good job that you've scaled them up. Let's give you 3 clients instead of 5 and hire someone to take those 2.
So it sounds like they just don't have the time to care and spend on all the things that they need to be doing. And when you've helped companies, you actually go deep and you don't have you have the time to do it well. I guess when someone's trying to find an agency or someone like you, I know you don't do this much anymore. Any advice for just like how to know if they're going to be great? Is it just like agencies in general are probably not a good choice? Is it hire someone in-house? I guess what advice do you have for people that are like, oh man, I want to avoid this?
Agencies are a good place to get things started. Even when I was consulting, I would honestly, I'm a big believer in forward thinking, backwards planning. So if I'm taking this contract on with this new client, it's what's the end goal for you? If your end goal is to have this at, performing at $100 million spend, there's no way one person can do that. So let's create milestones along the way of making sure we're checking in and saying, when is the right time to hire, whether that's a data scientist, whether that's a creative person in-house, or replacing me full-time. There's no reason that you should be holding a company back. If anything, you should be helping them get to that milestone. And I think that's why I've been able to do so well for myself, because I show that, hey, I have the best interest for you and your company, as opposed to how much more money can I squeeze from you by holding on to you as a client. I would say agency consultant is a good way to start, because if you as a business owner, you shouldn't have to log in. I haven't logged into Google in like 3 weeks to look at stuff because I'm doing payroll, I'm doing HR stuff, and I'm meeting with clients and I'm doing sales. Start there, get it to a good place, create that milestone of, hey, when we're spending $50K a month, I need to hire somebody full time to take this over, and just have that conversation with your agency and your consultant. I think more times than not, you will have a positive reaction to that. But if you don't, I would say that's a major red flag and probably someone you should be partnering with.
Awesome. Okay. So your advice is to get started on paid growth, find an agency or like a small shop consultant type person to get you started, have a conversation. And when we reach a certain scale, we're going to hire someone internally to run this for us. And then potentially they'll keep working with you. Potentially they'll start things on their own. Yep. Or is the assumption they'll start working with you? They'll become the owner of this thing? Or is it like we may transition you out?
That's a really good point, actually. So there have been times where clients like, hey, we've reached our milestone. I want to bring someone in. That person comes in and say they're an expert in social media. Like, hey, I still want you to execute on Google and Bing because that is just not my bailiwick. I'll take over the social stuff, but we do need to talk about your fee. Maybe it does need to go down. It's completely acceptable. Let's have that discussion, make sure we're both aligned to what that should be. But yeah, there have been times where they're like, hey, we've reached our milestone. We got to bring someone on. But that person that they bring on is like, actually, I see expansion in this direction, but I can't do this. Are you willing to stay on and help me with this? Great. If not, I'll just have to find someone else who can.
I want to talk about the team that you build over time, but later. But specifically for this first person that you hire, what sort of person is this person? Is it like a data person? Is it a person that's just done specific performance marketing on channel? Or what do you look for ideally?
I'm a big believer in that. There was a book written by Nate Silver called The Signal and the Noise. Are you familiar with it?
No.
So Nate Silver is the guy who created
537.
Yeah. And in the book, he basically, I'm gonna use the word art. Detailed the art of like probability, statistics, and applied them to like real world circumstances. It included case studies with baseball, which of course I loved, elections, climate change, poker, stuff like that. And I like that book. It's kind of dense, but the thing I liked the most about it was the title, and just changing the title ever so slightly to Signal Not Noise. So typically whenever I hire people, I want to hire smart people and kind of get out of their way. But the biggest thing I want to focus on is, what is your thought process when it comes to data? Because I can teach anyone how to do Google ads. I can teach anyone how to do meta ads. That is not the hard part. It is the data part that is the hard part, because there is so much noise going on in those accounts. They give you everything, which is great. It's great that they give you all this information, but you could have someone that's, oh, but look at the reach, look at the frequency, look at the CPMs, look at the CPC, look at the conversion rate, look at the cost per lead, look at the cost per MQL, look at this. Hold on. That's a lot of noise you just said. So what is the signal and what is the noise? And let's make sure we're focusing on the right signal versus the right noise. And that has to be a data person, because there's a lot of data in these platforms.
This episode is brought to you by Eppo. Eppo is a next-generation A/B testing and feature management platform built by alums of Airbnb and Snowflake for modern growth teams. Companies like Twitch, Miro, ClickUp, and DraftKings rely on Eppo to power their experiments. Experimentation is increasingly essential for driving growth and for understanding the performance of new features. And Eppo helps you increase experimentation velocity while unlocking rigorous, deep analysis in a way that no other commercial tool does. When I was at Airbnb, one of the things that I loved most was our experimentation platform, where I could set up experiments easily, troubleshoot issues, and analyze performance all on my own. Eppo does all that and more, with advanced statistical methods that can help you shave weeks off experiment time, an accessible UI for diving deeper into performance, and out-of-the-box reporting that helps you avoid annoying, prolonged analytics cycles. Eppo also makes it easy for you to share experiment insights with your team, sparking new ideas for the A/B testing flywheel. Eppo powers experimentation across every use case, including product, growth, machine learning, monetization, and email marketing. Check out Eppo at geteppo.com/Lenny and 10x your experiment velocity. That's geteppo.com/Lenny.
Everyone I talk to that's worked with you is just like Timothy is incredible at working with tons of data and finding the things that matter. Someone told me that it actually comes from your love of baseball, that you just go crazy with stats and spreadsheets of baseball games and players and things like that. Is there something there that you could share that is interesting?
Yeah, so I played baseball my whole life, but when you blow out your arm and you're as fast as a sea otter, it's not very conducive for you to continue chasing that dream. But the one thing I always liked was the stats. Even as a kid, when I would watch like baseball games on TV, it's like, what's this guy batting? How often is he getting on base? How many RBIs? Like, oh, this guy, it's terrible average, but he has a lot of RBIs. So that means if there's a runner on base, he may not get a hit, but he's going to get that guy in. So you want to make sure you put him in the right spot in the batting order, so on and so forth. I could talk about that for hours. But again, that could be another thing where there's a lot of data available. Which one should you focus on? And ultimately, what is the optimization you're going to make to the lineup or to the where you place fielders on the field to ensure that we're doing the right thing and becoming as efficient and effective as possible. As far as dealing with all that data, that is just, I would say, a skill I've learned over time. Early in my career, whenever someone, was like, oh, we have this new project, who wants to work on it? I'll do it. I was always just eager, like a sponge. I wanted to get in as much stuff as possible. I did SEO for a portion of my career. I did email marketing. I did affiliates. And then eventually I remember the first time I saw it paid, because again, I was doing like SEO where it's like, we're going to do this and we think it's going to work, but we won't know for about, 6 months. Someone showed me a paid platform. I was like, wait, this is the keyword you're betting on. This is how many times the ad was shown, how many people clicked on it, wow, this is amazing. I need to get more into this. And that's just kind of where it started. And when I usually hire people and we go through the interview process, I make sure that they can be data focused. Really, it's just ensuring that we're focusing on that signal and not the noise. And one of the interview questions I usually ask is like, I throw a bunch of, data points at them and then say, out of all that, what would you do to optimize the account? And more times than not, that they're just like overwhelmed. But the people that I like are like, well, what was the purpose of the what's the purpose of the campaign? The purpose of the campaign is to drive conversions. Okay, well, I would focus here, focus on how many clicks we're getting and how many conversions. Are we targeting the right people? Because who cares about how many impressions you're getting? Who cares about the reach? Who cares about the frequency? If the goal of the campaign is to get the conversions, that's what we should be doing. If it was awareness, it's how many people saw it. If it was consideration, how many people are we getting into the funnel and are considering us as from a white paper download or a demo as the product solution that they're looking for.
That's a great segue to the next question I wanted to ask you, which is just metrics that you love to focus on, pay attention to when you're helping people with paid ads. Like a lot of people think about CAC. A lot of people think about return on ad spend, LTV to CAC. I know it really depends on the goals, as you said, but I guess, is there anything that you find is like, forget these metrics? These are kind of the bucket that you focus on most.
Yeah. So for those metrics, I would say I really hope you have a great finance partner. Shout out to Courtney and Nick, the fantastic finance partners I have at Shopify. Well, Nick's not there anymore. Sad cry emoji. But Courtney, we're able to collaborate on those things, understand this is the investment we're putting in. This is the expected return. This is the CAC that we can basically put a guardrail on. You have to be within. So hopefully you have a really strong financial partner you can use for those. But as far as the stuff that I focus on, there are things that whenever we're looking at accounts, we'll kind of hyper focus on. For example, Google will give you information about what is going on with your ad copy and how to ultimately show as often as possible. What I'm showing here is a visual of brand versus non-brand when it comes to expected click-through rate, landing page experience, and ad relevance. The reason I like building reports like this is because it will kind of show you where your hole in the ship is. If you look on the left side, expected click-through rate, 75% above average. Landing page experience, 84% above average. Then you get down to ad relevance. A lot more colors than there are green. Only 35% above average. So for your brand ad copy, the clear direction you have from the data that's available to you is jump into the account and make it more relevant. That will improve your ad strength. And once you improve your ad strength, that will improve your quality score. And more times than, I think it's 12% increase in the number of impressions you can get if you increase from a below average to an above average for the data that's available here. And then on the non-brand side, clear expected click-through rate, you really need to be working on. And that data is also available here that you can kind of see. I put in red, the one for brand, your quality score being at a 9, but your average CPC is $8. That is very interesting because it should be the lower your CPC is. I mean, the higher your CPC is, the lower your CPC should be. So that is an investigation that it's like, hey, here's a signal. Let's go do a deep dive. So there's further reports that you could look at. Looking at the ad strength, again, average, excellent, good, or poor. You can see clearly on the non-brand side, doing really well. They're doing really well here. Most of their ads, 46 of their ads are excellent, and a bulk of their spend is going there. But if we look on the brand side, you have one ad that you could go in and just click pause on. That is a poor. And look at that CPC, $7. So just turning that ad off by itself, not only will, I'm a firm believer in that there's an account level quality score, not just necessarily a keyword or an ad quality score. So just turning this one off and removing it from the account, this one ad could dramatically improve your performance. And then Google actually tells you what you need to do to increase those strength things. So this report is ultimately powered by this one. So for your ad strength improvements, they'll tell you, try adding a few more unique headlines or unpinning some of the ad sets. Try including more keywords in your descriptions or your headlines. So they're actually giving you this information, but more times than not, I just feel like people are just missing this and just not taking action on it. So definitely some stuff available within the account that will help you focus on that signal versus the noise that you could be just getting from the clicks, the impressions, and all those things that are available to you.
That was amazing. For folks not watching on YouTube, you pulled up actual reports from, I imagine past clients. Is that what the
Yep.
data was from? Okay, so actual reports from past clients of how you evaluate, and this is Google Ads, basically,
Correct.
Google Ads data. Incredible. Okay, and so within those reports, you had poor, excellent. How do you determine when something is going great? Is that something you set, like if it's above this threshold? Is that a benchmark you have, or is that Google telling you this is poor?
Yeah, so that's Google telling you.
Okay.
There's some times where you will work really, really hard to take that poor to an average, that average to an excellent. And there's just not a whole lot you can do sometimes. It kind of is what it is. But I would argue more times than not, people are not doing those things to improve their ad strength. So just if you have the change history available in every account in Meta, in Google, if people are doing the test to try and improve and get better, great. You have the right people working. But if not, that's a clear indication that there's definitely room for improvement.
Something that someone asked on Twitter is for benchmarks around any of the stuff. Like, how do you know when your CPC is good? I guess you just look at like Google telling you it's excellent versus poor. How do you know if your conversion rate is good? How do you know if your CAC is good?
Yeah, every industry and every company is going to be different. Healthcare, lawyers, those are some of the highest cost and average CPCs I've seen. If I was to compare that industry, say, to a B2B industry, it would not be very good at all. Honestly, what I would tell the user to do, every single platform has partners available. More times than not, they're kind of like salespeople. I actually really like the partners that we have at Shopify because I do feel that they are partners. Shout out to Francisco at Google and Sammy and Alana at Meta and Nick and Sam and Brian at LinkedIn, in case they all hear this. But, I think they're really great partners and they will give you that information. They will actually say, if you give me the 5 people you consider to be your top competitors, I will tell you if you are above or below a certain threshold. Now, they can't tell you CAC because they would have to have transparency into like conversions, but click-through rate, conversion rate, cost per click, things like that, they will give you that information because they will anonymize it so you won't know who is who. Like if you say, my competitor is Monday.com, they won't say Monday.com has a click-through rate of 5%. They won't tell you that, but they will tell you of the competitors you gave us. And we added 3 more in just to, say, hey, we found some people. And also to where if you only give them 2, you can be like, oh, it's one or the other. They'll give you that information because they want you to succeed. Because if you succeed, you spend more money on their platform. So if you find out your average CPC is really high, take the actions that are in the account that tell you what you can do to lower it. But if you find out that you have a lower CPC, you're like, oh, great, I thought that was worse. And then you can communicate that internally to your team and say, hey, our average CPCs may seem high, but in reality, we got with our partners and we are, on par with the industry.
Got it. So the advice is don't seek generic benchmarks for any of these metrics. You can talk to your rep at Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., and they will give you essentially the numbers.
Great summary. Yes.
Amazing. Okay, going back to the report you just showed, is that a report you developed custom that gives you like, here's the most important stuff to pay attention to, or is it basically an export from Google Ad Manager? And
So these are all exports. So
Okay.
that this is just the visualization of the data that's available. So this all data is available in every account. This is data available in the account. This is data available in the account. Now, in saying that, there are more reports that we get into, like impression share and frequency. This is something I tend to look at that not a lot of other people do. It's not about showing as often as possible, because that's what impression share tells you. And that's kind of like ego marketing. I want to be number one. I want to be there all the time. It's about showing to the right person as often as possible. Instead of thinking about being on top of the page, you should think about serving the right user, which can be measured with our click share. And then Google will put us on top of the page, which we can see through our top impression share. That's what this whole visualization is here for, where I feel like a lot of people don't do this type of visualization. And this can be done by leveraging all the user data available in Google, such as demographics, locations, affinity audiences, in-market audiences, testing different bid strategies, and more. So the data is readily available, but it's just making the visualization a little bit more digestible. And the reason that I actually have two here to show is because this is an example of when I was working on an account back in 2023, where we started making some changes. And you can see that clearly our impression share, I would say was baseline. It didn't really change too much, but look at our click share going up, because now again, we're talking more to the right people, not necessarily just everyone, generic people, versus this campaign this was the test and this was the control. And you can clearly see that we were talking to a lot of people, but no one cared about what we were talking about. So this was an easy test to call and just say, this one's performing a lot better. And then, verifying the other metrics still look good, conversion rate, number of conversions, stuff like that. This one was the clear winner. So we went in this direction.
This is super cool. I love that you're showing this. And again, a plug for YouTube to actually see the charts you're talking about. I see one more slide on this deck. I'm curious what's there.
Yeah, so this one, I'm hoping you have show notes that we can give a shout out to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yep, there's a website called PPC Hero. What I usually tell people is terrible name, great content. The actual website used to be a little bit more cartoonish with like superheroes on it, but now it's, they've refined it. But the writer there, his name's Jacob Brown. This is what he calls the true competition metric. And again, this is why I highly recommend we give people the link to the article, because this does get a little dense. So what he does is that he creates 4 new metrics with the auction insights that are available. And 2 of those metrics are position above rate when we show, an amount of times they show and we don't, added together. And it will show how often a competitor ranks above you in all auctions you are available for. Using this type of lens is an effective way to identify genuine threats. Not that just this data can be used to gain comprehensive insights like determining your position and impression share, but by creating a baseline that you can see how this data changes over time through different bid strategies, keyword ad copy optimizations, and more. This is a very, very powerful one, because I do know a lot of people are always concerned about, what are my competitors doing? How are they doing it? Why are they doing it? And with all the smart bidding currently available, back in my day, it was all manual bid. So you could change the bid ever so slightly and then be like, oh, now my competitor is showing above me. And this is even before Google gave us auction insights data. This is now available to us in the platform. Using this report will actually identify a true threat, as opposed to making an assumption based on personalization that maybe you're seeing when you Google a keyword, or using a tool like SEMrush that ultimately is saying, oh, this person's appearing above you. Well, let's run this report and see if it's a genuine threat, as opposed to just maybe ego marketing going on.
Super cool. And this comes from PPC Hero, is this
Yep.
what you're saying? Cool. We'll definitely link to that. Are there any other tools or workflows that you find really helpful in analyzing this endless amount of data?
please, audience, if you are using AI in this way, let me know, because a lot of the stuff I do can be a little manual and can be a little time consuming. If they've found ways to automate through AI, that where I can provide the information that isn't, sensitive, that they will, make it a lot cleaner and a lot more digestible, let me know. But a lot of the things, I have templates that you can load the data into, and it will just automatically give you the result from it. But yeah, right now it is a little manual, but if there's a way to automate this through AI, please, users, contact me on LinkedIn and let me know.
Sounds like a startup opportunity right there.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, let's move in a slightly different direction. Attribution. What a sexy, exciting topic. So attribution, basically, it's how do you assign credit to a channel and to a campaign, so that you know where growth is coming from, what's working. What's the state of attribution today? What do you find is helpful? How do people do attribution well in today's world?
Yeah, I'm a big believer and proponent in multi-touch. I fall into the camp of more time decay. Historically, the research I've done, users tend to forget very quickly where they first found your brand. Yes, you should get credit because this is the first time they saw your brand or the first time they interacted with it. For sure, let's give you some credit for that, but definitely not the reason that they ultimately converted. Linear is fine as well, but overall, I do think, attribution by itself is biased. It does not answer the question of whether the person clicking on or seeing an ad would have converted anyways, even in the absence of that ad. This is why numerous companies like Netflix and eBay have done studies to get an understanding of the incrementality of paid advertising campaigns, whether that's conducting GeoX or conversion lift test at important slices of the marketing channel. I know eBay was very popular when they did that experiment. I think it was like 2012, and I'll have a link for you for that as well, where they ultimately decided to cut almost all of their brand spend because they found that users were already going to find them through organic anyway. So they were just kind of throwing money out the window. And it was really hard for competitors to get their ads at the top of the page because their quality scores were so low.
Okay, so multi-touch is the way you like to think about it. Basically give credits to all of the channels that you detected the user saw your ad on, and less credit if it was further back in time.
Right. Yep.
And then in terms of tooling, is there tools you love? Is it stuff you build in-house? Generally, how do people go about doing this sort of stuff?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to say I have been fortunate or not, but most of the companies I've worked with, like the big companies of the world, the Pinterest, the Shopify's, the IBMs of the world, tend to build things in-house. So from a third-party tool, unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of go-tos for that. So again, either that's I've been fortunate or I've been sheltered.
And then are there tools that you see people use, or is it just like really nothing amazing out there?
Yeah, none that I've seen that's like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I will always say, make sure you're trying to leverage the in-platform tools, because the biggest thing with performance marketing is the signal you're sending the platform. Because if you are telling the platform, oh, I want to get more of the users that are doing this action, it's going to do a really good job of giving you that. But if that action doesn't equal business results, you're not helping yourself at the end of the day. You're giving it, again, a lot of noise instead of the right signal. So try and leverage the in-platform tools, or if there is a tool you're using, make sure it does, allow third-party integration through the Google, Meta, TikToks of the world.
Then let's talk about incrementality. You mentioned this idea of how do you know if the money you spent led to incremental growth that wouldn't have happened if you didn't run that ad. Is there any advice there, anything you've seen about just like how to think about incrementality correctly and not just give yourself all this credit for stuff that would have happened anyway?
Yeah, I mean, there are many ways to judge the effectiveness of growth overall. Like some of the stuff we talked about before, brand metrics, awareness, recall, things along those lines. They're also, I know some companies look at like leading indicators like visits and clicks, or attribute which of the efforts are linked to or perceived drivers of actions like leads, conversions to prospect to scale. But really the results should be coming from either that geo X or geo experiment or conversion lift. The results of those experiments should ultimately fuel the plans for your what we call IAF, incrementality adjusted factor, and will allow you to be more precise and how efficient each channel is, ideally by region. Sometimes you just have a holistic of like, this is how Meta is, this is how YouTube is. But if you don't have it by region, don't fret, it's fine. Just have it by platform. And kind of like, what does that look in practice? When you're running a conversion lift test, you intentionally do not show your ad to some users when you win an auction, and instead Google shows the next bidder's ad. This is your control group and adds up to some opportunity cost that is estimated in terms of impression share percentage, as well as spend holdback. Spend holdback is like how much money you will not spend because of this test. And all of the platforms are willing to partner with you on this because, Facebook knows this, LinkedIn knows this, all of them know that they are very visually based creative assets that are not getting as much credit as they deserve. So if you go to any of them, if say you don't have a dedicated rep, you can call. And if you ask for this, more times than not, they are willing to partner with you. In saying that, if you're not spending enough, they probably will not help you with this because there are certain spend thresholds you do need to meet. But I would say at least start there. And also, if you're not spending more than, I would say, $50K a month in the platform, doing this is going to be a lot more work than you're going to get result from. You're just not going to have enough signal there.
So basically, don't worry about running incrementality tests when you're
starting out. Yeah.
Got it. And so basically, to understand actual incrementality, every platform has a way for you to actually test it on the platform, and the team there can help you run it.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, let's go back to talking about team structure and how to kind of build your own performance marketing team. So we talked about the first person that you hire, and the advice there was someone that's understands how to find signal in noise. So there's that one person, and your advice there was maybe around like 50K. Was that like an actual threshold that you usually recommend, or is that just like an example?
Every business is slightly different. I mean, if they're well-funded, 50K may not, the threshold may be higher, but everyone's different. 50K may be like, if somebody said, if you were just say, hey, give me a number, I would say 50K to start having those conversations. Because if you're at 50K, say for the month of June, great. It's going to take us 3 months to hire someone anyway. So at least start the conversations now.
Awesome. Okay. What do like the first 3 to 5 hires look like generally that you recommend for scaling internally performance marketing?
So the first thing, like we said, someone data-driven that can get into the platforms. The next is going to be creative because I need those two now working hand in hand, making sure the creative is matching the tone and also the performance that we're trying to achieve as a business. And then third would be a dedicated data scientist, a fully dedicated person, because they can help you with things like the incrementality testing. They can help create reports that will ultimately make everyone's lives better. They will be able to build analyses that you will not, as a generalist, will not be able to do yourself. That there's a saying of like, I'm not a data scientist, but I like to play one online, because what they do, they ultimately make us look really good because we're ultimately the ones reporting on the performance of it, but they were the ones that helped build that environment and build all those things for us to succeed.
In the terms of the creative person, is that like a graphic designer? Is it like a marketing person? What's like the actual skill set there?
It would be more graphic design / branding. The reason for that is because if you have a good marketing mix, you're going to have, if we keep it to a 3-step funnel of awareness, consideration, purchase, you're going to need to build some brand equity in a specific direction, you're going to need to make sure you're communicating value, which now you're not being as creative, you are being more directional. And then ultimately the purchase is like, hey, click here, convert now. So you do want to give them the ability to still be creative. Hey, I hired you because you have a good creative eye and you're good at what you do. But now we need to focus on getting that person to convert. So you give them a little free rein to be creative, but then you also need them to be able to execute against that creative. You need to get those users to convert.
And they're also writing the copy, I imagine, for like the Google ads.
I usually say that should be collaborative. The performance marketer should be able to write most of the ads, but I can't tell you how many times in my career where I've written an ad and I'm like, this is the greatest ad ever written known to man. People will write stories about this ad. It is amazing. And it flops because I'm not the target audience more times than not. So I think it should be collaborative and no idea should be left on the cutting room floor, because perfect example. I was working with ADT, the security company. We wrote the most perfect ad when Google Ads only allowed a headline and 2 descriptions of 35 and 35. We got every single value prop in there somehow. It was amazing. And the ad that it was going against was $0 setup fee, $0 install fee. That ad won. It's like, that is no. How did that? It barely uses any of the characters, and it almost tells you almost nothing, but it won. Had more conversions, a higher click-through rate. So we took that and we applied that with the value props, and it did better. So it should never be like, unless the idea is don't buy our product, which hopefully someone is not writing that ad copy, it shouldn't be left on the cutting room floor. Always test it. Always be willing to learn what works, what doesn't.
For this first hire, what's like the title of this person usually in your experience?
Lately, it's been growth marketing specialist, growth marketing manager, because they're going to wear multiple hats. Like at any startup that you're at, you're going to be asked one day to, hey, I want you to do performance ads. And then tomorrow it's like, hey, I need you to help me build out this spreadsheet for a spec sheet that you have no idea what you're doing. So you're always going to wear multiple hats. So just having a general title like that to start out with. And then if that person matures into a role, you can make them more of a specialist. Or if they start showing signs of like, hey, I really like doing the social stuff and we've scaled enough. Okay, let me hire a paid search person. So yeah, I always start with a general. And then as the team grows, we get more into specialties.
So like growth marketing person, it's kind of like the broad umbrella.
Yeah.
And then are these people sitting in Google Ad Manager and Meta ads and just like running ads manually?
I'm a firm believer at Shopify, we call it GSD, getting shit done. I'm a firm believer in getting shit done. You should be in the account, like I mentioned earlier, with that ops cadence. We have stuff we need to be doing weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. The bigger the company gets, you wind up in more and more meetings talking about the things you want to do and how you're going to do it and stuff like that. But keeping those people kind of sheltered away from that and focused on those things are going to drive the best results for you possibly can get. And that means hands on keyboards in the ads manager, tweaking things, setting up a calendar. I'm a firm believer in setting up a calendar. We did this test. We started this test on this day. That means this test will end on a month from now. Put a notification so you have a cool down period and you report out to the org what you did, how you did it, why you did it, and then the results from it. And then, all right, what we learned from this is this, and we will be applying that to our next test, and this is how. So yeah, hands on keyboards, doing all of those things. So again, hiring those smart people and just getting out of their way.
I love that. In terms of how this team grows, you mentioned when we were chatting that you wait for someone to cry uncle to hire more and to add to the team to kind of avoid bloat. Talk about that.
Unfortunately, we've seen a lot in the news lately with a lot of tech companies letting go of some really talented people. And that is, I feel like, just created bloated organizations. We every month, my current manager, Dean, created this calculator that we look at that says, how much time are you spending in meetings? If you have any PTO coming up, put that in there, optimizations, reporting, stuff like that, to basically add up to how many days are in the quarter. Because, every quarter, well, not every quarter, but most quarters you'll have like vacation, or you'll have, say, what we call a Shopify burst, where it's we meet in real life to, get shit done in real life as opposed to remotely. Put all that in there, and then what does the number equate to? Oh, we're in the red right now for these, 2 to 5 people. How many quarters has it been that way? Okay, it's only this quarter. This quarter we have a summit coming up, or we have a burst coming up, or we have a lot of travel because we're meeting with partners, so on and so forth. So maybe this is an isolated thing. Let's go ahead and wait till next quarter. All right, next quarter, it's red again. All right, now maybe we need to start having the conversation of what this new hire will take over, what they will be responsible for, and how much work they'll be taking on and doing to replace some of this red that is going on. And if it equates to a full head, great, we can move forward. We've made our business case. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we're just red, and we need to do a better job of making sure, hey, we need to step out of these meetings. These meetings are sucking out our time and we don't need to be a part of it. Or this launch, we don't need to be a part of. We just need to be consulted on it. We don't need to be in every single meeting, every single time, or every single communication. So just making sure we're looking at the right things before we decide to hire someone, and making sure that we have stuff for them to do.
And red means they have more work.
Yeah, more days than there are in the quarter.
And so they basically estimate, here's how many days I need to do the things I've committed to for the quarter. And then it's like, how many actual days do you have this quarter?
Yep.
That is super cool. And so step 1 is, okay, if you're in the red, let's cut some stuff. And then if they're still in the red and you've cut stuff, then okay, we need to start hiring.
Yep.
That is very cool. Is that a Shopify thing, or is that something you do on your team?
I've done stuff like that at other companies before, but kind of bringing it forward again. I don't want to take the credit for it. Dean was kind of the one that brought it back up. It was like, oh yeah, I used to do this. I don't know why I stopped doing it. So it's definitely something I've used at other companies for sure.
That is super cool. You mentioned this ops cadence. Is that something you can describe, just like what this cadence looks like of how you run?
Yeah. So I love me a spreadsheet. So it's just a spreadsheet. And visually, I'll do my best to describe it. Let's say column A has those buckets I was talking about, like a finance, performance, structure, keywords, so on and so forth. And then within those buckets, or let's call those, everyone loves rocks and pebbles right now, right? So that's your big rock. Your big rock is keywords. Then within that, you have pebbles, keyword granularity, brand versus non-brand, search query reports, negatives, so on and so forth. And then within that, we say how often we're doing it. Are we doing it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? And then that allows us to, if anyone in the organization is like, hey, how often are you guys updating ad copy? Easy answer. How often are you guys doing search query reports? Easy answer. And it allows us to make sure we hold ourselves accountable to those things, because a lot of times we have a lot we're doing. We're working in Google, we're working in Meta, we're working in YouTube. You could easily forget, oh, I didn't do that. I got to make sure I do that again. So it's a way to hold yourself accountable, but it's also a way for me as a manager to go in and kind of spot check that and make sure that they're doing the things that need to be done in the account.
The core of this is essentially there's a spreadsheet that everyone aligns on of here's when and how often we do certain activity to operate this performance marketing machine that you've built.
Yep.
Awesome. And it's both internally so that everyone knows, and then also when people ask, hey, when are you going to do this? Okay, here's the date.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if a cross-functional team or partner wants to know, easy answer. We got it for you right here. Here's our whole ops cadence.
In terms of the team, something else folks told me about you is that you're very hardcore about training new people that you hire. What does that mean? What do people mean by that?
Yeah, there's a book called, I think it's The First 90 Days. And in it actually has a graph that shows when the person starts having impact and how many days it's been. And more times than not, it takes about, we've all heard it, 90 days for someone to have impact. I want to try and make that, 45 days, if not 30. Most of the time, it has to do with learning the culture, learning the people, understanding, yes, you've done paid before at this other job, but this is how we do it here. That's where the ops cadence really comes in handy. It's like, here's how often we do it here. I understand maybe you did it monthly there, but we do it here biweekly. I understand you used to do it biweekly. We do it weekly, and this is how. And also giving them responsibility early on for something. For example, Kat on my team was hired 8-ish months ago. She was thrown into the fire very quickly. It was like, hey, we have this campaign coming up called Editions. Here's everything we did last editions. This is the results. These are your responsibilities. These are the expectations. Go forth and conquer. As you come along, there may be something that doesn't make sense. I'm here. By all means, ask questions. But what I've noticed is twofold. One, when you're clear in what is expected of them, like you are expected to do this when, and you already know how to do it, great. Or also in like one-on-ones, I'll just open up the account and say, hey, this is how I do it. Let me show you the way I'm doing it and how quick it is for me. And you can learn, even though we're remote, I'm showing you as if you're sitting right over my shoulder or we're face to face. This is how I do it. So if you're doing something different, maybe, 1 + 1 is 2, 3 - 1 is 2, and that's fine. We both got to the same answer. But if you're doing like 9 × 5 - 2 × 12 divided by 15, no, we can simplify this. So making sure that they're efficient and effective with their time, they're focusing on that signal versus that noise, and giving them responsibility early on to really take ownership of something, you can see that people are a lot more quicker to pick up things and start getting that flywheel going of, hey, I want to have impact as soon as possible versus, oh, hey, go read this handbook week 1, week 2. Let me introduce you to the team. Week 3, it's like slow rolling that. We can speed this up, guys. We can get people up to speed and making impact a lot sooner. And also, don't expect them to be perfect. You can't expect people to be perfect right out the gate. I can't remember every little thing I need to tell you. So, and there may be things I can learn from you. I can't tell you how many times I'm still learning from people, around me. It's like, oh, that's great. I didn't even think of that, or I haven't tried that. I should totally do that. So just know that they're not going to be perfect out of the gate, but giving them clear direction and expectations will get them where they need to be.
I could see why your team is so effective and so successful. This all makes a lot of sense. You mind if I do a rapid fire set of questions that people asked on Twitter about very specific stuff?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. ATT, there was like a huge change to the way cookies and attribution and tracking worked online. And it felt like paid ads kind of like, oh shit, that's not going to work anymore. It's over. Facebook is dead. Clearly that hasn't happened. At this point, just what is the impact that ATT has had on paid ads and performance marketing?
We were just talking about this the other day because we have full transparency. We have people fully dedicated to mobile on the team. And I had reached out to Sasha, who's on the team, and said, hey, what are we doing with ATT? What are we doing scan? All those things. Because has any of our tactics really changed because of, say, low opt-in rates? And kind of the direct answer I got from her was, as long as we can use scan to provide attribution and measurement for iOS, we're fine. It's like, okay, that's very straightforward. I appreciate it. So as long as you're doing those things, you should be okay.
Amazing. That's great. So basically the show goes on, things change, but people find ways to work around it. Okay. Creatives. How impactful are creative in the performance of ads generally? Like, is that like, holy shit, people are way under estimating the power of a creative, or is it like, okay, it's like a fringe impact?
Way underestimating the power of creative. The best example I can give, do you remember Dollar Shave Club?
Absolutely. Their video?
All right, there you go. Do you remember it? That was
Never
creative.
forget.
Now, the person buying it may have done a really good job of just targeting males, but I would argue, girlfriends at the time probably would have been aware of it as well. I think creative does. If really good creative should be doing a really good job of telling a story, and if it does that, again, going back to what we talked about at the very beginning, if you get that emotion with users, whether that's pulling at the heartstrings or comedy, it's going to have a lasting impact.
Okay. Chuck on Twitter asks, when someone steals your traffic, say in Google search results, and buying up keywords around your company, what should you do? Any advice?
Yeah, so that actually goes back to the visual that we showed, and I'll pull it back up as I'm talking through it. The biggest thing is just know that anyone can do that. You can do it too. Like if you are ultimately concerned about it, but a lot of times competitors could be doing it on accident. And what I mean by accident is within Google, if you're bidding on keywords, Google will do what's called a close variant. If you were to do, say, e-commerce solution, I bet you Shopify shows up as a close variant at some point, or Square, or anyone like that. So they could just be mismanaging their account first and foremost. Don't give them that much credit that they're doing this maliciously or even doing it with intent. But if you do pull this, and again, it will be in the show notes, if you do pull this report and you do notice that there is a clear threat that's going on here, first things first, let's make sure that they're not doing anything egregious, like saying Lenny and Tim are better than Monday.com. You cannot be, if the brand is trademarked within Google, they cannot use your name within the ad copy. Google more times than not will disallow it, but they could misspell it. Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen Shopify spelled with 2 I's because Google isn't catching it, but we can always put in a claim to say, hey, Google, please remove this. But if we do run this, you can kind of see that the orange line here, and for those that are just listening, orange line is rather consistent over time. There is a 2-week period where it dips, but it does come back up. There's another line that at the beginning of this visual, green is actually above orange. And if you look at the green one over time, it almost disappears. So the reason I would say make sure you're looking at this report, and it's not just ego marketing, it could be an error. The issue could be the green one specifically could have been getting a close variant. They identified it, they removed it. Oh, wait, a couple of weeks later, we didn't fully remove it. Now let's remove it completely. And now they're almost gone completely. So make sure you're looking at the data and reacting to consistent competitor conquesting versus something that could just be an accident or users not knowing what they're doing.
Amazing. And this is PPC Hero again, right? ppchero.com or whatever.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
We'll share it. We'll share it.
Yeah, we'll link it to it in the show notes. Okay, last question, AI. You mentioned AI. You're looking for AI tools to help you with your workflows and analyze data. I guess, is there anything you've seen AI impact in the work of paid growth and performance marketing? Or is it like in the future it might, other than obviously the algorithms behind on the platforms?
I remember having this conversation a couple of months ago. AI was like, couldn't get away from it, right? It was everywhere. And what we were doing was leadership wanted to know in all of our, quarterly planning, what are we doing about AI? How are we using AI? What are we doing that's different? What we did was as always, I go to the partners and I say, hey, what are we doing about this? And Francisco at Google, actually, he made a really good point. You guys have been using AI for years now. Smart bidding is AI. All of the recommendations within Google Ads is AI. Ad copy recommendations is AI. And that's always been in the platform. So we've always used those things. So it was kind of like, let's reset the conversation of, hey, this has been here. We have been using it. This is how we've been using it. And moving forward, these are some of the things we think we'll start doing. I do think it's having a huge impact from a content standpoint and a creative standpoint. Now, if those two kind of converge together, you kind of have a perfect storm, right? But it's not overly, it is something that I keep a relative close eye on. But like I said earlier, hopefully some of your users can share more information with me. But it's not something that I would say is overly impactful yet. But I could see how it could be used maliciously if you can do like API connections and things along those lines, for sure.
Oh, wait, what do you mean by that?
Again, Google will disallow certain things, but it takes time sometimes. Like if the term is copyrighted in Google for ad copy, it will disallow it immediately. But say they need to do a check, you'll see a lot of times under review or pending in the account. But you'll also see impressions potentially attached to that. It's because Google's like, oh, we'll serve a little bit of it. And then if it's malicious, we'll pull it back. I could see a way that somebody could automate AI to where it's like always updating it to where it's like, oh, let's just get a little drip here, a little drip here, a little drip here. And that little drip equates to a lot. But that's something AI could help with. A human doing that would just take forever and be a total waste of time.
Got it. Just run tons of ads. Just keep trying stuff.
Yeah.
Slip through the cracks. You mentioned creative. It actually came back to a question I forgot to ask. So you start with this, going back to the team that you hired to run this sort of stuff. You hire this one person, growth marketer, specialist type of person. And the next hire is a creative. What's a sign that it's time to hire the creative person? Is there anything there of just like, is it just like we have budget and this is working? Or is there anything else of like, okay, this is a good time?
Yeah, if you're using a creative agency and they're getting you everything you want and you're happy with it, then yeah, it may not make sense to hire a creative. But more times than not, what I've noticed from creative independents tend to do better than like an agency. The biggest difference I see is that matching the right tone, matching the right creative look and feel that you're going for is accomplished way better in-house. And also coming up with new ideas that you can test quickly and iterate on versus we only have so many hours with the agency this month, or we only have so much budget we can spend with them. Where if you have that person in-house fully dedicated to the product itself, you'll never run into those caps.
It feels like if anywhere, that's an area AI is going to empower that initial hire to do more creative on their own, you would think.
Yeah. And that's not always the best way to go. I mean, I've seen some ads in there where it's like, oh yeah, they're being scrappy. I see what they're doing. But to your point, maybe that's where AI kind of bridges the gap, because I can't tell you how many times in the past, it's like, guys, we got to be able to do retargeting, but we have no creative to do. Google has the dynamic ad builder, and they've had it for, I feel like, years now. And that was just like, give us a couple of images and we will make a display ad for you that should perform, because we're testing many different iterations of it. Meta's probably going to come along with something as well that it's like, give us a picture of your product and we'll put different backgrounds on it and test what works and what doesn't, things along those lines.
That makes so much sense. Timothy, we've covered so much ground. This is everything I was hoping it would be. Before we get to our very exciting lightning round, is there anything else that you think would be important or valuable for listeners when they're trying to do this stuff on their own? Any other nuggets left that we haven't already covered?
Yeah, I said it at one point, but I'll reiterate it. I'm always forward thinking, backwards planning. Just as you're going through it, like, where do you want to be? And ultimately, how do you think you're going to get there? Because if, say, your goal is to be on all platforms, I want to be on Pinterest, I want to be on X, I want to be on, everything. Okay. What forward think? That's where you want to be. Now let's backwards plan. What can we do right now? We can do search, because that's only content and that's keywords. We can do that. All right. Now we need creative. Well, where do we start? And then make iterations along the way. It's just always forward think, backwards plan. And that's for anything.
What are other examples of forward thinking? Because in a sense, everyone will be like, I want to be on every platform. I guess like
what other things that people think about when they're like the forward thinking? Is like, oh, we want to win Google search. Is that an example of forward thinking? What else should people be thinking about
Yeah,
there?
exactly. What are those goals you want to hit? One of the things that we look at is what, emerging channels to performant. So what is it going to take for us to consider this channel a performant channel that is an always on? We're adopting it as BAU. So that's going to take 1,000 conversions a month at this much spend with this much lift associated with it. So, okay, we know what that looks like. So we're going to backwards plan where we're going to start. We're going to start with this one ad creative. Okay, that works. Then we're going to go to this next, because within each platform, they all have multiple types of ad units you can use. Say in LinkedIn, there's feed, there's conversation, there's video, there's carousel. So it's what are the milestones along the way that you're going to do to ultimately get it from, testing emerging channel to performant. So that would be an example of something more micro than macro.
Got it. Well, with that, we reached our very exciting lightning round. Are you ready?
Oh yeah.
First question. What are 2 or 3 books that you've recommended most to other people?
Daily Stoic by far. Book I read every day. Quick, excerpt of what you can do from a Stoic philosophy standpoint. Great by Choice is another good one, and Deep Work.
Favorite recent movie or TV show that you really enjoyed?
X-Men 97. Thoroughly enjoyed that, but that may be a lot of nostalgia. I actually never watched RRR when it first came out. Highly recommend that. That was a lot more enjoyable than I was anticipating. The Playlist, which is about Spotify. Welcome to Wrexham. And Billion Dollar Code, also on Netflix, about Google Earth. Very interesting.
Yeah, RRR. That movie is intense and very long. Also, it's like, man,
Yeah,
I've
it's
been
like 3.5 hours.
I just have to split it up into different days to finish it, but it's incredible. So intense. Okay, favorite recent product you've recently discovered that you really love?
I drink too much caffeine and I've been trying to cut it out. And I kind of circled back to this product I used to use called Magic Mind. It's a little shot every single day, tastes really good, and it does help with focus, I find. If it's a placebo, great. I don't care, but it's helping me.
That's amazing. I'm also a huge fan of Magic Mind. I'm friends with the guy that started it. So funny that you love it. I drink it often. I'm on the subscription plan, and I think he uses Shopify to sell it.
He does. Yep.
It all connects. Amazing. Do you have a favorite life motto that you often come back to, share with friends or family, find useful and work in life?
Happiness is dedicated by expectations or dictated by expectations. That can't be more true more times than not. And it's similar. That's why I said there's 2. And this one's similar to it. You won't see it for what it is until you stop looking through the lens of what you want it to be.
Amazing. It reminds me of an equation a colleague of mine once shared. He wrote a book of like emotional equations or life equations, and it was happiness is reality minus expectations.
Yep. Love that.
Okay, next question. Who's had the most influence on you in your career?
Well, we mentioned him before, so I got to bring him back up. Casey Winters, for sure. We were at a wedding. He showed me the original version of Google Analytics. For those of you that don't know, it's called Urgent. And when he showed that to me, it was, wait, you know all of this information about users coming to the site? I knew I wanted to do marketing, but at that moment, I knew I was going to do digital marketing, and, watched him grow in his career. He's watching me grow in my career. We still bounce each questions off of each other. We cannot not have a phone call under an hour. So definitely the most impactful.
Is there something about Casey Winters that people may not know? He's a 2-time podcast guest, huge friend of the show.
Casey is really good at tennis, like insanely good at tennis. You want to know how good? This is how good he was. In high school, he played I think it was I'm pretty sure it was our senior year. He hadn't played in a year, maybe a year plus. He was still ranked top 10 in the state of Louisiana for tennis players. Hasn't played in a year and still considered one of the top 10 players. Insane.
Did not know that. I actually played tennis in high school. And so that's amazing. I did not know this. Thanks for sharing that. Timothy, this was incredible. I think this is going to help a lot of people figure out performance marketing, run more paid growth ads, figure out who to bring in to help them do this. Thank you so much for sharing and for being here.
Of course. Appreciate the time.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving a review, as that really helps other listeners find the podcast. You can find all past episodes or learn more about the show at lennyspodcast.com. See you in the next episode.